welcome in to Check the Mic. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson. We're live on YouTube and back in studio, Sam. The preseason is over. The final preseason snap has taken place, and it's time to get ready for the regular season. We're going to help you do that, recapping the preseason, some rookies in particular who will make an impact. But, time to celebrate the end of the preseason and start looking ahead. Regular season, a couple weeks away.
Thank God. Preseason's done. Actual regular season, real NFL football just around the corner.
And we took the red eye back home from Circa just yesterday.
We did indeed.
Did you get to sleep a little bit yesterday?
Yesterday, yes. Playing, no. In part because of the crazy person I was sitting next to.
Oh, he wanted to talk.
He did.
That guy was ready to have a 3 a.m. conversation with you about life.
I knew I was in trouble. I sat, even before I made it to the row, right? There was a guy just sort of hanging around, standing up, like halfway in the seat, halfway not. And you're like, that's not a great sign to begin with. And then when I sat down, very quickly, he removed both his shoes and socks. And you're like, this is not going to go well. And then, because it was Delta, they stick with the headphones that actually require being plugged into the thing. Normally they come around like immediately and offer the headphones up. They were late this time, right? So it was like 20 minutes into the flight, and they finally came with the headphones. I was like this close. I was separating the thing, and they were 6 inches from my ear when the guy starts talking.
No, yeah, I saw you.
So sad.
I was trying to prompt you along and say, hey, let me know how the movie goes. Quick, get to the movie so you can tell me how Moneyball ends.
Yeah.
Anyway, we had a fun time out at Circa. We'll talk about that as we go here. All right, man, let's just get into it. Preseason's over.
It is.
The first thing that you and I, we spent a lot of time together throughout the weekend at the Cabana, at the Overhang Bar, everywhere. Right? Don't make a face.
I mean, I wouldn't have let off with Cabana.
We were hanging out.
Okay.
We were hanging out throughout the weekend. I'm letting everybody know the cool places you can hang out at Circa. Stadium Swim, Overhang Bar, watching all the games. But the thing that stood out in week 3 was how many teams were rolling starters out there, and how many other teams that they happen to be playing were like, nope, the guys who 90% of these guys are getting cut. Those are the guys that we're putting out there. Yeah,
well, preseason has essentially now become 2 completely different ways of approaching it. So this 3-game preseason schedule now. It used to be 4, then we went to the 17-game schedule. In the regular season, we lost a preseason game to accommodate that. So now teams are treating it essentially 2 different ways. You either, and these are the ones that actually play starters at any point ever. Some teams just like nobody of consequence is playing in any of these games. But for the ones that are actually going to play their starters, you either get them a little bit of warm-up action in games 1 or 2, and then everybody shuts down for the 3rd game, and that becomes like the old Week 4 preseason games, where the only people playing in that game are guys that are about to get cut. Other teams do it the other way around, where they sort of play mostly backups in the first couple of games, and then the 3rd game they treat as like the warm-up game for the regular season. So the starters come in that game, play for a while, and then take it to the bench. So which means that in this 3rd week, you get these, and for some reason this year seemed to be, they all met each other, where every team that was playing starters seemed to be doing so against a 3rd string unit, and every team that was playing the 3rd string was running up against like a full starting unit, which just seems bizarre. So, all the time you get this, it's against backups when you're focusing on any individual preseason performance. This week it was insane, though, because it wasn't just backups. It's like, this is literally against the guys that are not playing in the NFL.
There was a significant starter versus starter matchup, which we'll talk about. Chiefs and Bears, I thought was pretty telling. We'll talk about that in a minute. But, one of those starters against the 3rd string games involved rookie number 1 overall pick Cam Ward of the Tennessee Titans.
Yes, it did. So
that is how when we're trying to unpack the performances that we saw, it was amazing how many games it was like these first stringers are getting 2 or 3 drives against 3rd string. That is what we saw with the Titans and the Vikings. The Vikings chose to rest their roster, basically. Whereas the Titans said, hey, we need to get these reps. Overall, though, your thoughts on Cam Ward and maybe his preseason in totality, but also this particular game against the Vikings?
Yeah, I mean, he looked pretty good. This was interesting because, everybody of consequence was rested. This was literally a 3rd string unit for the Vikings on both sides of the ball. However, they did at least maintain, Flores didn't start running vanilla cover 2. Like, he still ran his defense, so you still got to see part of the Vikings, when you're playing them in particular, when you're playing the defense, is the exotic looks and the blitz packages and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, Cam Ward was facing a third-string defensive unit personnel-wise, but he was still facing the Vikings playbook and blitzes, and so it was at least challenging in terms of what he was looking at, but it was a bunch of people that he should be beating. And the ball went more or less where it needed to go. He showed pretty decent feel for when the pressure was going to come. The blitz packages that they were showing him, he generally went to the right place with the football. So he did what he could do against that type of opposition.
Good for me to see, because I was there, as I mentioned, in training camp on the day that they were going up against Flores-like looks. Denard Wilson, the defensive coordinator for the Titans, on the first practice that I went to, was showing a bunch of those third down, 7-man up on the line of scrimmage looks, and it was Cam's worst day of practice, which we've talked about a ton, right? How much do you do? How much do you handle? How much do you weigh one day of practice and what you saw versus 20 practices? That particular day with Cam was not great. And then I saw a much better day for him a few days later when I was there at Titans camp. But yeah, it was good to see that. I think threw the ball pretty well. I think the arm talent for Cam Ward has been very evident during the preseason. I think there's a lot of plays. He's one of those guys where I think the way he manipulates and maneuvers the pocket is going to be both good and bad, a little boomer bust for him. I think he has these elements of driftiness to him and maybe rolling left and right. And sometimes that works against you, especially the driftiness. When you drop back too far, you lose the leverage. Your offensive linemen lose leverage. This is
we'll get to that with Shedeur.
Well, we'll get to that with Shedeur. But his is different, right? It's more of like a Mahomes, like, instead of dropping to 8 or 9 yards, I'm going to drop to 10, 11, 12 and just drift. But it feels more calculated with Cam Ward. But, again, it's boom or bust, right? Your tackles need to know that you're doing that. So that was one thing that stood out in the preseason, and just the overall arm talent, whippiness of the arm. We saw a nice tight window throw against the Vikings the other night on a deep out, which was beautiful. And so I think Cam Ward is going to be fun. I think he's going to be fun this year. I do think the line will be better, and I think he showed it. Whatever we saw in the preseason, he wasn't overwhelmed in a negative sense. He wasn't dominant in a positive sense, but I think he's going to be competitive out there, and I think that's going to give the Titans a chance to win week in, week out.
Yeah, that deep out was a really interesting throw, because it was one of those ones where the blitz was coming. There was some pressure that was going to get there. The ball needed to come out reasonably quickly, and he hit the right throw. But also, all three of the route combinations on that side of the field, they were all open, and he took the deepest one. Like classic Cam Ward, where he's always looking for the biggest play he can get. And, you get some quarterbacks that almost read kind of low to high versus the ones that go high to low. Cam Ward's just like immediate green light. The deepest throw is open. I am taking that without a second thought.
Yeah, so I think overall, Cam Ward, pretty good preseason. We've talked before, too, as a number one overall pick, maybe not getting as much hype because there's a fifth rounder in Cleveland that everybody seems to be talking about. Anything else on Cam before we do get to the Browns QBs?
No, the only thing I would say is the Vikings defense is relatively complex and tricky to deal with. But that was kind of third-string defense versus effectively first-string Titans offensive line, and they were giving up some pressure. I wouldn't feel great about that if I was looking for Cam Ward futures this season. Yeah,
we'll see. Like I said, on paper, it should be a little better. With Tajay Spears injured, there's some questions as far as backup running back with Tony Pollard. They're trying to break in some younger receivers to go with Calvin Ridley there. I mean, it's not a great overall situation, but I think the pass protection should be better than it's been in Tennessee. If it's not, then it could be a long season there, but it should be better.
Vikings defensive tackle Levi Drake Rodriguez.
I mean, he's awesome.
Classic,
Levi's great.
Yeah, low, almost completely forgotten about draft prospect that everyone loved. I mean, he was doing some damage against that offensive
We'll
line.
we'll talk later about the Vikings. They made a deal. We're going to go through all the trades as well. So we're going to have some more specific rookie breakdowns. We'll talk about these rookie quarterbacks. We'll have some trade discussion later and talk about the defensive tackle situation in Minnesota. But yeah, I'd say check the box for Cam Ward as far as the preseason. Maybe not as hyped as Jaxson Dart, who we'll talk about in a minute. Not as maligned as Shedeur Sanders, who we'll also talk about in a minute. But I think a good, solid preseason for Cam Ward. And I think there'll be the expected volatility of not only Cam Ward's game, but him as a rookie. And, I think there'll be some big plays in there, and we'll see if, he can avoid some of the disastrous mistakes this season. Mm-hmm. Let's talk Browns and the quarterback situation there. So they're a team that they rolled out their starters. The starter is Joe Flacco.
Yes.
Joe Flacco goes out there, throws a touchdown, comes out of the game. Flacco got his reps with the starters, hit Harold Fannin, the rookie tight end, who, by the way, was lined up as X-receiver on that play. They had David Njoku on the other side, so they had trips to one side. They had Fannin as the isolated receiver on the touchdown from Flacco. I thought that was notable from Harold Fannin, somebody to keep an eye on, as one of the rookies to keep an eye on. Dillon Gabriel came in after that, and then it was Shedeur Sanders, and then all hell broke loose.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of notable things, I think, so part of this whole week 3 dynamic starters playing versus resting is you get, a reasonable idea of how teams are viewing some of these young players or, guys that have been incredible throughout training camp. Where it's almost like a declaration of where they stand on the depth chart based off how they're played or otherwise in these preseason games. So the Browns, I think you got a couple of serious bits of signal based off how they were playing some of these players. I think Harold Fannin's going to be, a serious part of this offense. Obviously, he's not going to be tight end one. That's David Njoku, but it looks like he's going to be involved. Like, he will be on the field with Njoku. He will rotate in with Njoku. Like, he's going to play for this team. Jamari Thrash, a guy that I liked a few years ago, looks like he's fairly entrenched as a significant part of this offense. And then Gage Larvadain has become a player for this team. I mean, he was rolling with the first team unit in this offense and doing well with it. So I think those two guys are going to be heavy parts of this passing game. And then Dylan Sampson, I've been kind of, on the one hand, I've wanted to see more from him this preseason. On the other hand, the fact that I haven't is probably a good thing because I think they're going to be using him as a serious part of the offense, with Quinshon Judkins still waiting effectively in limbo because of his legal issues. Dylan Sampson's got an opportunity to have a serious part of that offensive lineup.
And not on the offensive side, but while we're here, Aiden Huntington from Tulane, an undrafted free agent that just had this incredible athletic profile, sawed-off type of edge interior defensive line body that is difficult to block, and he's made an impact this preseason. And right after the game, Andrew Berry saying, yeah, he's making the 53 and he'll be on the squad. You never know if that means 10 snaps a game or if he's legitimately part of the rotation, but just a guy I was keeping an eye on that's had a really nice preseason.
And Berry also said while he was in the booth with Joe Thomas and Chris Rose that they're going to be keeping 4 quarterbacks.
So let's start with that. They're going to keep 4 quarterbacks. I believe Joe Thomas, we weren't listening to the broadcast directly the entire time. We were at Circa watching this game and the commentaries going back and forth. I saw somebody say that Joe Thomas kept repeating that they can't keep 4 quarterbacks in Cleveland, which obviously Barry said, hey, we will. That's the plan. We've seen other teams do this. The Vikings were stashing quarterbacks last year, and I've joked when I'm GM that I'll always have 4 or 5 on the roster because I'll just ignore my special teams coach. That's like, no, I need the 5th linebacker. I need a better gunner. I need a vice. I need my punt team to be better, whatever it might be. And I would ignore him and say, no, I'm stashing QBs because you never know. Right, so Andrew Berry believes that. Kwesi believes that. Stash those QBs. Forget about your special teams too deep. So they're gonna keep 4. The difference here is 2 of them are kind of known commodities. Your starter Joe Flacco, and then Kenny Pickett as the backup, and then the 2 spots for the rookies. So on one hand, I get the 4, but why is Kenny Pickett there? Is that just saying, hey, we don't trust Dillon Gabriel as the direct backup right now? Or we're just going to keep, stashing the 4 just in case here.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Like they want to keep the 2 rookies. I mean, it's easy to keep 4 if you want to put one of them on the practice squad. The problem the Browns have is I don't know I don't think they know, and I don't know if you can get Shedeur Sanders to a practice squad. Is somebody going to claim him based off the first game that he played where he looked like he could do some damage? Maybe. So if they want to keep 4, I think they probably have to keep them all on the active roster. You've also got looming over all of this, like what happens if Deshaun Watson decides he's healthy and wants to pass a physical and force them to activate him? That would be a whole new grenade launched into all this. But for the moment, if they want to keep 4, I think they have to keep all 4 of those guys active. And I don't know that they trust either of the rookies to be the direct backup if Joe Flacco goes down, particularly because, I mean, look, if he's being honest with himself, he's not just saying if Joe Flacco gets hurt at some point this season. He's saying when Joe Flacco plays his way to the bench at some point, am I comfortable with one of these guys playing 11 games? And the answer to that right now is probably no. So, I think Dillon Gabriel looked really good in this game. Crisp, simple passing, had a very impressive outing. But I don't think that they've seen enough from him so far to be able to go, if Flacco is really bad right out of the gate and we have to play him from like the start of October, is that going to work?
Yeah, Gabriel looked good, man, and he hit one, that corner route really, pinpoint on the scoring drive there. I thought Gabriel looked pretty good.
Yeah.
Mostly worked from the pocket, got out of the pocket a couple times. For the most part, I would say Gabriel's 2 outings, short area accuracy has been good. He threw one. So before he hit that pinpoint ball out along the sideline, he did have an overthrow over the middle, right? If you're of the minds that Dillon Gabriel's too short or doesn't have the arm or whatever it was, you'd look at that throw where he's kind of, peeking over the line and gets under it and hung his receiver out to dry with a bad miss over the middle. And that's the thing. I mean, he's not a first-round prospect, Dillon Gabriel. So you've got those weaknesses in there. And so but that's what these types of quarterbacks will do as soon as you're like, see, can't do it. Can't throw over the middle. He's hanging it, hospital ball over the middle, and he can't see. Then he drops a dime with his next throw. And so, yeah, Gabriel's had some ups and downs. The pick 6 was questionable, but as we said, I think that was a couple weeks ago. The routes were messed up, and everybody was off, and he probably should have just thrown it away.
Right.
But overall, I think he's had pretty good zip on the ball, short area accuracy, controlling the offense. Our friend Jeff Schwartz, who is a Big Ten analyst, but most notably, former Oregon Duck, follows Oregon as close as anybody. And he said, yeah, Dillon Gabriel's been what we saw at Oregon. Runs the offense. I don't know if the theoretical upside is there, but he's overall going to get rid of the ball quickly, make good decisions, and then add to it the thing I liked with Gabriel in the scouting process. I think his quickness when he needs to run, when he needs to get out of the pocket. I think some of his decision-making outside the pocket is questionable, but he also makes some really nice throws on the run. So I think it was a good overall preseason for Dillon Gabriel.
But I think that's the thing he's shown is that the theoretical upside is probably higher than people ever gave him credit for because he has better physical tools than people ever gave him credit for. Like, he has an arm. He has pretty good athleticism. Those are things that I think people tended to just mentally ding him for because he's a short quarterback. And I think people just connect short quarterback with overall marginal physical tools. He doesn't have marginal physical tools. He's short, but he's actually quick, pretty strong, and has a good arm. Like, those 3 things, I think, all popped in his limited preseason action.
If anything, I do think that the height is the thing that could hurt him the most.
Sure.
Not so much velocity, but the height and the ability to see passing lanes. But as we say all the time, whether it's Kyler Murray or Baker Mayfield, those guys have been that height their entire life.
Right.
Dillon Gabriel, for whatever this is worth, the winningest quarterback in college football history across multiple programs. So he's found a way to work with his
and he's got a lot of starting experience with being a short quarterback. The man's played a lot of games at that height.
He does. And look, nobody would say Brock Purdy has a ton of upside because he doesn't have the most he doesn't actually have a lot of velocity on the ball, but he does these other things well that have given him the ability to have success at the next level. Now let's talk Shedeur Sanders.
Okay.
We're going to do it. A guy that threw 6 passes, but dropped back way more than that because he got sacked 5 times. So 3 for 6 for Shedeur Sanders for 14 yards. Got sacked 5 times on those 11 dropbacks for negative 41
the
yards.
Line decided they didn't like him. They stopped blocking. And the GM decided to start calling the bad plays for him. The man was just hung out to dry by everybody else.
For those who are not picking up on Sam's sarcastic tone, we compared this to Tebow Mania a couple weeks ago, where there is just an incredible mix of reviews, extreme reviews of performance.
It's just insanity. It's not logical.
We're making a Tebow. I mean, Tebow got drafted 15 years ago. So just to remind people, Tebow, with his storied career at Florida, surprisingly goes in the first round. Josh McDaniels and the Broncos drafted Tebow in the first round. That was a shock on draft night. There were no draft analysts being like, "Yeah, Tebow's in the first round. Just got to know which team's gonna take him." You know, so the Broncos, he was going to be a mid-round pick.
There were some that said he was it was shocking, but not like there were people because the Tebow thing was always irrational. There were always a bunch of people that were like, Tebow's definitely a first-round player because of the grit, the determination, the leadership. So it was definitely out there, but it wasn't a complete mind-blowing shock because there was always like a subset of people that were like, Tim Tebow's a first-round player.
It was still a shock for me because, I mean, I'm a Florida fan, but I don't care as far as like what a player is as a prospect if they were playing at Florida or not. I looked at Tebow and was like, I don't think he could play in the NFL the way he is. With the long release was everything that everybody talked about, and he didn't really have a great arm. He was a very good runner, but it was more, power runner, not a dynamic runner. So this was Tebow going in the first round in 2010. And then when he got into the NFL, he literally had a game one time where he went like 2 for 7 for 57 yards. But it was a big, long pass to Brandon Lloyd to set up a game-winning field goal or whatever it was at the time, and it was like, Tebow's a hero. And there was this element of how he played where the team actually did start winning in Denver in 2011 when he took over. He did have an incredible playoff game, including the game winner to Demaryius Thomas. Would never take that moment away from Tebow. That was legit. That was a legitimate game that he played. But there were other games where he would complete like 6 passes,
but even that
run the ball a little bit, and they would play great defense.
Right.
And it kind of coincided with his style. And everybody, the Tebow fans would say, of course, he's just a winner. He's great, motivational guy, blah, blah, blah. This is going to carry on. He's a star.
Even that play, the game winner against Pittsburgh, like that shows how defenses viewed Tim Tebow. That was the most suicidal coverage I have ever seen in a late game critical situation. They basically said, we do not believe that you can complete this relatively routine pass over the middle. We are playing like zero blitz type coverage. We have no faith that you're going to complete this play. And he did, and he beat them, and fair play to him for that. You can't, as you said, you can't take it away from him. But like literally a playoff defense was like, we have so little faith in your ability to be a basic passing NFL quarterback that we are going to set up with this kind of suicidal coverage. And if you beat it, you beat it.
I just wanted to set the stage for what Tebow Mania was like. And then even when Denver moved on from him,
it was before its time. It was like the world today.
I mean, look, it started back then. The Brett Favre coverage of 2008 when he was going to retire and go to the Jets, that was wild. The Tebow stuff was wild. So then they go get Peyton Manning, who's clearly better.
Yeah.
Push him out of Denver. Then it's like, who's going to trade for Tebow? He even went to New England where it's like, all right, Bill Belichick is going to unlock Tebow. They're going to bring him in on goal line. They're going to take Brady out, and they're going to run Tebow power or whatever, and that lasted a preseason, right? So everywhere he went, the Jets, our boss, brought him in. Mike T, he's going to be the change of pace to Mark Sanchez. And so he just kind of bounced around the league a little bit, never really made an impact. Went and played minor league baseball, came back as a tight end with the Jags, had some of the worst tight end reps I've ever seen in my life.
Honestly, some of the worst plays you'll ever see in your life.
So that was the Tebow experience, right? Great guy doing, analysis for SEC and what have you. I'm just setting this whole thing up because no matter what you saw with your eyes, there would be some people who said, or even whether he won. Even if he won, somebody would say, well, he was terrible. And when he didn't even play that well, somebody would say, it's just Tebow. The guy's just a winner. You're not seeing it right. You're not making the right read on him. We have reached that level and beyond with Shedeur Sanders. I mean, I think we're at the beyond portion.
I mean, we are just in a post-fact, post-reality landscape where what's actually happening is completely irrelevant to the take you're going to put out there. You've got Eric Dickerson out here saying that the NFL was telling everybody not to draft Shedeur Sanders. They wanted to make an example out of him, was his quote, right? Based off a really good source. That makes example for what? I mean, what do you... Anyway, utter ridiculousness, right?
or that somebody was trying to make a point to Deion. Like, what does anyone have against Deion?
What's the point they're making? Like, I don't understand. What does the NFL have against Deion? Anyway, so that's ridiculous. Now you've got, he plays badly in preseason finale. And like, well, the coach was giving Dillon Gabriel the good plays, and then Shedeur Sanders got all the bad plays. And he was out there with third stringers who didn't want to block for him. What do you expect him to do? Okay. Number one, his plays were probably better than they looked because his pocket presence was abysmal, and instead of taking a completion, he ran backwards for 20 yards.
We'll talk about the play. I mean, we're setting the stage for like what is happening out there with the Shedeur Sanders discourse.
Number two, I mean, even just logically, right? Let's say for one moment that the people who are saying his offensive line didn't want to block for him, they hung him out to dry, right? Replacement style. They just stood there, hands in pockets, while defensive players mugged him and sacked him, right? Let's assume for a moment that's actually true. That would be a pretty big flaw for Shedeur Sanders. That would mean that as a quarterback, he is so toxic, whether or not it's his fault, that his own offensive linemen do not want to block for him. On its own, that would be reason to cut him. If that was actually accurate, that would be all the reason you needed to say, we're getting this guy off the roster, because his own teammates hate him so much they're trying to get him hurt, right? So leaving aside the fact that that's an actually absurd, farcical statement to be making, if it was true, it's worse than anything that's actually happening.
You're blaming Shedeur for his offensive lineman not blocking.
I'm
and then
saying,
on top of that, the line...
Again, whether or not it's his fault, even if it isn't his fault, the point is that would be a thing that comes with him.
So then on top of that, the biggest... first off, maybe some people haven't seen these opinions and takes out there.
I can't imagine how you'd avoid them.
But it is just absolutely wild. The line,
and this whole thing,
Stefanski's out to get him. Stefanski's incompetent. Now the biggest question was like, why did they take him out before the 2-minute drill?
Right.
To put Tyler Huntley in there, and I don't know the exact reason. But
I think that's a reasonable question, but you would also say.
But oh, by the way, I mean, is Pickett definitely going to be the fourth quarter? Like, is Huntley potentially going to be?
He's already cut.
Okay.
So no.
So I don't know why. Unless it was just like, Shedeur, you're having a bad day.
I honestly think it was he's drowning. Get him out of there.
Yeah, we're gonna because the completions were like everything was bad.
Yeah.
On Saturday with
he
Shedeur
was
Sanders.
taking sacks that I genuinely think it's like sometimes you got to get the guy out of the line. Like it's the opposite of what people are saying. They're like they are setting him up to fail. They're making him drown in this awful situation. Like that guy got him off the field because he was drowning. That's protective. That's that's looking out for your quarterback by getting him the hell out of a bad situation, not putting him in one and letting him drown.
I feel the need to just bring up how crazy some of the takes are. Because
but by the way,
we're just saying like the guy's a 5th-round pick, and it's just a dart throw that hopefully he can develop, and it doesn't like he was never going to start the regular season opener or anything like that. Like, just let him develop.
This extends beyond Shedeur to Shiloh as well. Like, this is a Sanders phenomenon as well. Shiloh Sanders gets ejected from the game, right? And Jordan Schultz, NFL insider Jordan Schultz,
you just air quoted him like he's never going to be on the show with us now.
I air quoted him because that's the Ian Rappaport's nemesis, right? The coffee shop fight. Like anyway. Jordan Schultz out here going, Shiloh Sanders just got ejected for this, posting the video, and be better, NFL referees. He punched a dude. It's the most obvious ejection you've ever seen.
He literally threw a punch directly in front of the official.
And connected.
Always
just swung.
Always ejectable.
It's been ejectable for years. It's the most, if you're in NFL offices somewhere being like, dude, guy, we need to create a tape, to send NFL teams. Just here's the things that get you ejected. Somebody grabbed the first, cleanest punch you can find. It would be the tape you showed them. You do this, you get ejected.
That might be Shiloh's legacy.
So Shiloh commits the most obvious ejectable foul in the world, gets ejected, and Jordan Schultz is out here going, NFL refs, be better. This is disgusting. You're like, it's madness.
Why everyone's losing their mind over anyone named Sanders. And the analysis isn't that difficult. It's not difficult. Shiloh was a UDFA safety on a deep Bucks team and probably was going to make the team anyway. Already got cut. That using UDF, undrafted free agent safety. Shedeur Sanders was a first, second round prospect to many. Well, we call him a first round pick who had flaws,
right,
and had strengths.
But this is why.
Really quick, every Shedeur strength, which is finding completions. When he throws the ball, it's pretty good. Reads the defense well. His ability to maneuver the pocket and feel the rush and adjust to the rush was a massive question mark. And the big question mark we had was the volume at which he faced that.
By the way, so live fact checker Ben Stockwell has just updated me on the Jordan Schultz thing. That Jordan Schultz's tweet was so bad that it's been community noted.
Well, because Jordan took a screenshot.
No, he posted the video.
But initially, I thought it was just a screenshot, and you saw Shiloh with. It looked like he just had his hands up on Zach Davidson, the tight end.
He posted the full video with the. I'll read it out now. The caption: "What a joke! Bucks rookie safety Shiloh Sanders was ejected. ... For this ? Like really? Be better, NFL refs." And then, as the community note says, Shiloh Sanders threw a punch in direct view of the officials. This usually leads to an ejection under NFL Rule 12. Like, it's the most, again, so the point is it's irrational lunacy, and this is why Shedeur Sanders fell as far as he did, right? Because the math changes once you no longer view him as a starting quarterback. There were, 2 or 3 teams out there that were looking for a quote-unquote starter for this year or beyond. Once he got beyond those teams, like once he passed those teams, they decided Jaxson Dart is our guy, Tyler Shough is our guy, whatever. Once he cleared that group of teams, he's now viewed collectively, NFL-wide, as a backup, right? And a team is now looking at this and going, do we want this level of madness to accompany a backup quarterback? And look, you can absolutely make the case that this is not his fault. Now, you can also make the case it is. But just for the sake of argument, you can say none of this is his fault. This media circus, this whole thing, he's just a kid out there trying to do his best, blah, blah, blah. And that's fair. But from an NFL team, it doesn't matter. From their perspective, they're just looking at that and going, I don't want this absurd media circus and this madness accompanying a backup quarterback or a number 3 quarterback on my depth chart. It's not worth the headache.
I don't know if teams even anticipated this. I'm mad at the Shedeur Sanders fans who can't think logically, and I'm mad at the media for things like, being, incredulous that Shiloh Sanders was thrown out for throwing a punch, which is pretty standard. The media aspect of it as well, because people who have actually listened to Shedeur Sanders speak have been like, I agree. Like, he's handled everything pretty well. Yeah. Like, his answers are thoughtful, and they asked him after the fact something to the effect of, are you good enough to make the team? Are you good enough to make the 53? And he says, yeah, but it wasn't like, yeah, of course I am. I'm Shedeur Sanders. Right. Like, the way it was positioned was this idea of him being brash and confident, and I don't care that I got sacked 5 times today. I'm Shedeur Sanders. Of course I should make the team. That's how it was conveyed. When the reality was, he just goes on this diatribe. Well, yeah, everyone's confident. Yeah. Everyone wants to make it. Of course I'm confident in my own ability, and I think I should be on the team. But it was positioned as Shedeur Sanders was asked if he's making the 53. He said, of course.
And this is where
you all need to stop that. You all need to stop. You all need to stop taking 1/10 of a quote and getting an emotional response out of people, including me getting emotional here. But on the other side, stop doing that.
This is where you would look at it and say, this stuff is not his fault, right? This is the problem, is you are getting people being dishonest with quotes. I mean, I was watching, once I cleared Moneyball and still had some time to kill and did not want to talk to the crazy beside me, I was like, let's watch Casino on the way back from Vegas. So there's a point in Casino, right, where Robert De Niro is being interviewed as the PR spin, and they're like trying to get him to say that he's the boss. And he's like, eventually goes, blah, blah, with all these caveats, I guess you could say I'm the boss. And then the newspaper headline is just, Sam Rockwell says, I'm the boss, or whatever. Sam, whatever his name is, says, I'm the boss. Like, that's what's happening. They're waiting for Shedeur to just say the 3 words they're looking for, and then they just cut everything else out. And now the strategy is you just say, you just put in the quote, and you cut out everything else. It's like, that's not That's not journalistically, that's not journalism and integrity. That's manipulative. That's unsound ethics, and that's what's happening to Shedeur in addition to all this stuff. So there's absolutely a bunch of stuff that is not his fault. But again, from a team perspective, that's not necessarily, they don't care. It's just like this ridiculousness surrounds this kid.
And because Liam, who's usually pretty astute in the chat, is asking, did taking shots from Gabriel last week affect his performance? To reiterate,
again, didn't take a shot.
He did not take shots from Gabriel. If you were influenced, this is all of our fault for being influenced by the media. If you were influenced by the fact that the NFL main account on Twitter cut the question, which was about the media, to Dillon Gabriel. They cut the question.
That he said several times before as well.
Yes.
Like, this is a thing that Dillon Gabriel has said repeatedly throughout his, admittedly, college career. But, this is not the first time he's used that distinction, which in a vacuum, completely absent of all context, could be interpreted this way.
And what was the quote?
He's already done it before. He was like,
he said there's
entertainers and competitors or something.
Entertainers and competitors,
yeah.
Right? And he's trying to talk about, how are you handling the media?
Right.
How are you handling – and he's saying we're entertainers, unfortunately, Sam. People are somehow entertained by us. Not so much us, but the bigger names.
Certainly not competitors
more.
Based off our careers.
Yeah. So the entertainers of the media is what he's trying to say, right? You're trying to have people listen to you or read you or whatever it is. And he's just trying to say, I'm a competitor. It had nothing to do with Shedeur Sanders. And the NFL's main account didn't even put that context in there. They just put the quote. Then they wrote the quote, because this is the other issue. Half the time, or more than half the time, people just read the caption and not the actual video. And with the caption, which says entertainers and competitors, and of course a lot of people assumed that was Shedeur Sanders. So we had to get all that out there and just say, look, I know our listeners aren't like that.
No. But
our viewers aren't like that.
So this is the thing, right? This whole circus.
Oh, Liam was being sarcastic. I apologize. But I needed to clarify. I need to clarify that with other people.
Yeah. This whole circus, unfortunately, follows Shedeur wherever he goes. So it makes it very difficult to actually fairly evaluate what happened. Now, was it a good situation that he was in terms of being in there with the number 3 offense, et cetera? No. Having said that, the Rams in this game were one of the teams that started their third string. This game was seen as such a complete waste of time by the Los Angeles Rams that Stetson Bennett was given the night off, right? So they were starting somebody called Dresser Wynn in this game, who I would imagine even relatively hardcore fans have no idea who that is, right? So the Browns getting down to the third string was just equalizing the playing field with the Los Angeles Rams, who began the game with the third string. So this was not a case of Shedeur was way over his head in terms of the competition he was facing. It was a bunch of people that are not supposed to be making NFL rosters, including, by the way, Shedeur. That's a problem. Now, you then get to how he was playing.
Let's get a big setup for how did the game actually go for Shedeur Sanders. It needed to get that off our chest, though. We needed to clarify a lot of the background and how we got to this craziness. Go ahead.
Basically, the worst elements of Shedeur Sanders' game as a college prospect, as a player trying to make it to the NFL, surfaced in this game with backups, which is just a terrible tendency to, I think, try and be more athletic than he is. This, and one of our initial takeaways in that his debut performance that looked really good was oh, look, that kind of, he looked a little bit more athletic than maybe you were giving him credit for. He tried to escape a couple of things and did successfully escape a couple of things. Well, this was the flip side, which was almost every single time he tried to escape something, he didn't successfully escape it, and that was problematic. And the other thing that was problematic is in almost every one of these instances, you didn't need to. You didn't need to try and escape. It was either a clean pocket, or if you just took a small step in this direction, it would have become a clean pocket. Instead, he's like, no, bail, escape. And bad things happen.
He needed to step up in the pocket a few different times. And we're back in this two things are true territory. And there's nuance to this. Here are the two things that are true. Watching Shedeur Sanders at Colorado, I was taken aback at how bad his offensive line was.
Yes.
Genuinely
horrific.
As a college football viewer, I thought it was bad, but not as bad as it seemed, because there were definitely some plays where Shedeur made it look worse. Mm-hmm. But then when you go back through the tape, I was like, man, it's actually a little worse than I had anticipated.
It was so bad.
And then the other part that's also true is Shedeur didn't handle pressure well. He did not react to it well. And you and I simply asked the question, okay, how much are these tendencies ingrained in him? And because he has so many dropbacks under pressure, this is who he is right now. And he has to undo these tendencies of moving back in the pocket and the way he maneuvers the pocket and never stepping up and never trusting his offensive line. Will he ever get out of that? And we still have that question mark because that's probably not going to get fixed in 8 months and some mini camp and some training camp practices and a couple preseason games. It's probably not going to get fixed, but it still needs to get fixed. And so even when there are times when the pocket's generally clean, he's not handling it well. And he does in this game. We've talked about Mahomes always being a step faster than the pass rush. And even when there's pressure, Mahomes knows the perfect escape route and is very good at avoiding sacks and then finding completions. Shedeur felt like the opposite, where every time he moved, he's moving into pressure, and then he's not getting away from it. And in this game, it just didn't work. Those are you can't play in the NFL like that. So as positive as game one was for Shedeur Sanders, a lot of good stuff, a lot of completions, 2 big-time throws in the red zone for touchdowns. And when he did maneuver the pocket, he looked quick. This was equally as bad and, an issue as far as, Shedeur Sanders and his game translating to actual Sundays.
There's, a big picture discussion about when it comes to sacks and taking sacks or being sacked. How much of that is an offensive line thing, how much of that is a quarterback thing, right? And there's a big kind of discussion going on at the moment about how much a quarterback affects sack totals, right? And it's probably not a coincidence that Dan Marino had the best sack rate of all time. It wasn't that Dan Marino was playing behind the best offensive line every single year of his career. It was that Dan Marino was a savant at getting rid of the ball. We already know, Dan Marino has one of the quickest releases of all time. Like, these things are connected. Peyton Manning was always one of the best quarterbacks of all time at sack rate. Josh Allen has become an incredible quarterback at sack rate. Like, these are quarterbacks control these things to a huge degree. Now, does that mean it's all quarterback? Of course not. David Carr was sacked, a billion times, not because David Carr had the processing power of an old 286 computer. It's because David Carr's offensive line was garbage, right? And he got sacked an awful lot.
We make sure. Stay on the positive.
I just said, look,
positive.
This is not David Carr.
It's not David's fault.
The offensive line. So
we love the Cars.
It's, they both influence it, right? Like, a terrible offensive line, of course, increases your propensity to get sacked. But a quarterback controls this to an incredible degree. And I think you could illustrate that side of the argument using nothing but the 5-sack reel that Shedeur Sanders had in this game, right? If you just showed the 5 sacks that he took in this game, I think you could make a pretty compelling argument of how much a quarterback influences those numbers. Because I don't know that he should have taken any of those 5 sacks based off the play that was happening in front of him. Does that mean that he was not going to be under pressure in any of the 5 plays? Of course not. But the question was, if and when the pressure arrives, should it have resulted in a Shedeur Sanders sack? And the answer, I think, in all 5 instances is no. And I think, you were asking before, why did they pull him before the 2-minute warning? I honestly think the final sack was why, because pressure shows up, there's a wide open guy coming right across the middle that would have been a reasonably easy dump-off throw to just get rid of the ball and instead, eyes have dropped, he's panicking in the pocket, he tries to get out of a bunch of things, tries to actually step through the pocket to his credit as opposed to out the back and make it worse, but just didn't see it. And you're like, at this point, he's not seeing the field anymore. He's too worried about the pass rush that is killing him. And the last 2 times collectively that he's had pressure, he took a 20-something yard sack, and now this one, get him out of there. Like, he's just not functioning anymore. So I think literally using nothing but the 5-sack reel, you could say this is how much quarterbacks affect this play. If you put, let's use Josh Allen for that other extreme example. If you put Josh Allen in all 5 of those plays, I don't think Josh Allen would have taken a single sack. And I think several of those plays would have resulted in positive completions.
That's a tough concept, I think, for fans, because we're conditioned to see sack totals, assume it's the offensive line, and again, research, and then just intuitive football history. Dan Marino, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, guys that avoid sacks at a high level, they they did it because it's a quarterback-driven thing. But more specific research recently is like, yeah, the QB is the biggest driver of this, not the only driver, as you well laid out there. So bottom line on the Shedeur Sanders stuff. By the way, when we talk about Shedeur, it's not just because it's him. I think it's to have that type of football discussion. What are we seeing? What are we seeing when a guy gets sacked 5 times and 11 dropbacks? Who is to blame? How should we be thinking about that? That discussion is as interesting as, like, what do you think about Shedeur Sanders? But at the end of the day, guy that was drafted as a developmental late-round prospect, for whatever you thought of him going in, that's what he was drafted as, is still that, a developmental late-round prospect, who I think should be on the opening day roster for the Browns.
I think will be.
And he will be. And him and Dillon Gabriel just continue to get as many reps as he can and battle it out and see what happens.
Right. This is all too much, time and mental real estate taken up by a guy that is probably going to be the 53rd man on the 53-man roster. But long story short, week 1 debut was enough to make you say, okay, we should keep an eye on this kid, right? He showed more in that game than a 5th-round pick should do. And look, let's see if we have something here. This game was, though, all of the negatives from his process. Like, this is why he was not seen as a starting quarterback by seemingly every team in the NFL, because you can't play this way and start in the NFL, even with a better offensive line in front of you. Like, this is problematic play. This was his single biggest flaw as a prospect, and then week 1, you saw the flaw not manifest. So that's Shedeur in a nutshell. Intriguing. Definitely has the ability or the potential to be a starting quarterback, but this is the flaw that stops him being that right now.
Anything else on that?
No, I think that's 9 hours that we can move on from.
Other rookie quarterbacks that we need to discuss here. Tyler Shough in the Saints. He got the majority of the time in his battle against Spencer Rattler as of record time. What?
I just said Saints fans are going to be so mad that we spent like 9 hours talking Shedeur, and Tyler Shough's going to get summed up by that was pretty good except for the pick 6.
Yeah, that's what I told you off air.
Yeah.
Before we started this. That's Tyler Shough's preseason to me. I have a less nuanced conversation or a less detailed conversation about Tyler Shough. As of record time right now, there has been no my computer's exploding here. There has been no decision on the Saints starting quarterback. So Tyler Shough, Spencer Rattler, still both in the mix. I thought Shough's performance, I thought he did a good job mostly getting rid of the ball quickly and making decent decisions. He had the pick 6 back in week 1, which was a poor one. Overall, I think he's been solid, though. And then every now and again, there's elements of he's gonna try some stuff. He's going to take some chances down the field. One of them rolled to his left, tried to throw to a covered tight end, overthrew him. I mentioned in draft time some incredible throws rolling to his left. He just missed on this one. I think ultimately it should be Shough's job just to see what he can do.
I don't know. I don't think it will be. I think
it should be, but I think they want – I don't think they want Rattler, but I think they might be leaning toward Rattler at this point.
I think Rattler is going to get given this job. And I think – so remember we were saying the difference between the two largely this preseason has been – Tyler Shough's actually been getting the ball out of his hands a lot quicker, right? And, there's been other problems. But generally when Shough's come in, it's been let's get the ball out of his hands quickly. And this game, though, number one, Rattler went in there with the starters, so that's signal number 1. Number 2, though, he got the ball out of his hands way faster. So if they were like saying, look, you've been the better quarterback so far this offseason, but here's the problem that we're looking at is that the kid gets rid of the ball faster than you do. You're holding onto the ball too long. It's creating problems. Well, that's something that Rattler actually answered in this game. Okay, again, limited sample size, et cetera, but for the first time, he actually got the ball out of his hands much quicker and much more efficiently.
To clarify, the kid that you referred to was Tyler Shough,
who's older than Rattler.
Older than Rattler, yeah. Go ahead.
It doesn't matter. You're the kid. You got drafted this year.
He's got
I was drafted a year ago. You're the kid.
One less year of experience.
That's exactly how it works, yeah. I think Rattler probably won the job off the back of at least showing them the one thing they wanted to work on. If Shough had shown enough, I think it would be his job. The fact that he hasn't, I think, means that it's not. Like, I think the Saints have been they would have made the call already if Shough had shown them enough to put him in the lineup.
I've said before, though, it wasn't, if Spencer Rattler went in the second round based off the way people were talking about him pre-draft, we talked about people around the league who saw him as like intriguing backup with starter upside, right? That was the report on Rattler coming out, and he falls to the 5th. Why? Similar to Shedeur, right? Once you don't need a starter, 6 guys went ahead of him. Once you don't need a starter, you don't need to take a quarterback until later. That's what the Saints did. But it wouldn't have been crazy to see Rattler go in the second or third. And Shough did go in the second. So it's also not crazy to say the younger Spencer Rattler, who had, say, second round ability versus the 25-year-old second rounder, they're similar type of prospects, even though there's 3 rounds of difference in when they got drafted. I still thought they would go Tyler Shough just because of the draft capital investment, but this feels like one that could go back and forth and won't be
look,
set in stone necessarily.
It's one of those battles where it probably doesn't matter which guy wins it. I would imagine both guys are going to see the field maybe multiple times this season as they bounce back and forth. I honestly, it sounds ridiculous. I mean, it is ridiculously reductive, but it kind of is, it does sum up Tyler Shough. Like his preseason performance and honestly his college tape has been kind of, this is mostly pretty good, except for that one horrific decision or play in there. Like Tyler Shough this preseason, it's been mostly pretty good. It's been relatively, low risk and high efficiency, and then there's one bad play in there that drags it down from an overall efficiency standpoint. But that's what he's been.
And then we got to talk Jaxson Dart. Jaxson Dart has another good performance. This was mostly backups for the New England Patriots. But Dart, 6 of 12 for 81 yards and a touchdown, also had a 23-yard run in there. So the third straight game that we would describe as positive here for Jaxson Dart.
Yeah. Jaxson Dart's looked really good this preseason. You can definitely put caveats in there in terms of who was it against, and further caveats in terms of the sheer volume of his production that have been sort of big plays after the catch, which is not necessarily on Jaxson Dart as much as the players he's throwing to. But he's looked very good, and he's looked much further along from a mental processing standpoint and a readiness point of view than I expected him to. Now, it's only preseason, the usual caveats, but I went into this saying, look, you've got Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston on the roster. I don't need Jaxson Dart to be anything other than QB3 all season long. Next year we can toss him the keys, whatever. But even if Russell Wilson looks terrible and we have to play the backup, put Jameis Winston in, it doesn't need to be Jaxson Dart at all. Now you're looking at it and going, there's no reason he can't be QB2 and be the first guy off the bench if Russell Wilson plays badly. And by the way, Russell's looked pretty good in preseason as well. Like let's at least acknowledge the concept that Russell Wilson might be fine this year for the Giants. But yeah, I think Jaxson Dart moved himself up the depth chart.
There's a lot of different ways to look at this Giants team. I think they're improved for multiple reasons. They've gotten younger the last couple of years, intriguing youngsters that they've brought in, including Abdul Carter, who I think adds to that defensive line and immediately makes the Giants feisty on the defensive side of the ball. So I think they're better. I think it's also just a fair point to say, okay, you had Daniel Jones and Cutlets over the last couple of years making the majority of the starts versus Russell Wilson. Who's better? Easy argument to make that Russell Wilson will give them a better shot to win than Daniel Jones and Cutlets, right?
That's definitely better than Cutlets.
As a starting point, right? Is Russ what he was 4 or 5 years ago? No. I think we've seen that at both of the last 2 stops with the Denver Broncos and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Even when the stats looked pretty good, Russ just wasn't the same. He always, he'll take a few too many sacks, was a little boom or bust last year with the Steelers. But that boom part, which is the deep ball and his ability to get the ball down the field, adds some good volatility to the offense that they haven't had with Daniel Jones under center in particular. So now you've got, with Russ under center, they're probably better than they were. The roster's getting better and younger. The defense should be better. The Giants as a team, year 4 of Joe Shane and Brian Daboll, should be better than they've been the last 2 years. So that's the starting point. Then you have, the schedule's difficult. You've got the Commanders week 1, the Cowboys week 2, the Chiefs, Chargers, Saints week 5, fine. Maybe you're favored in the dome there, and then the Eagles twice in the first 8 weeks. Like you're the underdog in almost every game, especially at the beginning of the season. So it might not show up in the record. And then you have the Jaxson Dart dynamic, which is, we always ask this question. If you're not going to start week 1 as a rookie, when's the best time to get out there? And is it when are you sitting there at 1-5 or 2-4? And then you got to put them in there. Do you want to say, hey, week 6 against the Eagles, that's when you're getting your first start? Or do you say, oh no, it's against the defending Super Bowl champs, we can't have that be your first start? I don't think that matters a ton, but it's probably considered. But I think Jaxson Dart, to your point, He's had a positive enough preseason, gotten rid of the ball quickly, showed. I always thought he was a good scrambler at Ole Miss and that he could run the ball a little bit, which he's shown. So far I've been wrong. Well, I mean, some plays have gone both ways. He fumbled the other day, tried to evade a sack and was unable to do it. I thought he had a little bit of Shedeur to him when it came to his ability to avoid pressure, but I thought he was a good scrambler, but not a dynamic athlete, right?
Well, he's
so
a load when he gets going.
When he picks his spots and when he finishes runs and overall he's thrown the ball well. He's made some nice plays under pressure as well. So there's been far more good than bad with Jaxson Dart, but now it's a question of, okay, Russell Wilson's your starter. What happens with your record? And ultimately, when do you think Jaxson Dart's ready? Because I still think that's the most important part of when he needs to go in.
Yeah, I still think he's got some – he has some Shedeur Sanders issues in terms of how he navigates pressure and decides to try and escape when it's not necessarily possible with his athleticism. He is, however, a load when he gets going and he's difficult to tackle. Now, we saw the downside of that, though, when you trust that in the game where he tries to sort of finish a run where Brian Daboll helpfully explained to him on the sideline, like, just slide. Tried to finish a run, run over a guy, cut around a guy at the same time, end up losing the ball as a fumble and getting himself hurt at the same time. That's like worst case scenario, right? Like you could have slid. You tried to get 2 more yards by doing something different, and you lost the ball and got yourself dinged up. That's why we slide at the NFL level. So that's a tricky thing, right? Is if your biggest asset as a sort of big scrambling quarterback is you're kind of a load to bring down and difficult to tackle, that's great, but that massively increases the risk of both of those two things happening, and they both happen in that play. So that's a tough balance to strike when you want to try and get those extra few yards versus when you just slide.
We had more on the Jaxson Dart discussion from Circa live on the YouTube channel, which is why you guys need to subscribe. Be subscribed because you never know when we're going to go live. We had a little instant reaction on Friday morning after Jaxson Dart's Thursday night performance. So be sure to hit subscribe here on YouTube. There's some bonus content, basically. I mean, a lot more here than there is even in audio land. So if you're in audio land listening, be sure to hit the YouTube channel as well for the extra Check the Mic content, which is all powered by FanDuel this season, as you can see in the 2-shot. Look at that. FanDuel, baby. Up on the wall. It's going to be a great season thanks to FanDuel. It's Check the Mic's presenting sponsor this year. If you haven't signed up for FanDuel Sportsbook, now is the time. So for new customers, if you win your first $5 wager, you can get $300 in bonus bets. That's right. Win your first $5 wager. Could be anything. $300 in bonus bets. Head over to FanDuel.com or download the FanDuel app to bet on all your favorite sports, all of the Week 1 NFL games. They're on both FanDuel.com and the FanDuel app, as well as any college football. Last week, we did our college football preview, which I'm disappointed in. Most of you have not watched that yet. You should go watch. Sam and I preview college football with the great Josh Pate.
Feedback was great.
Numbers were terrible on YouTube, but we need you to go check it out. Sam and I both picked Kansas State to cover the 3.5-point spread.
Not a good start.
Against Iowa State in Farmageddon in Dublin.
They
Josh
were favored,
Pate,
right?
I mean, it was telling, right? You and I, NFL analyst, we took Kansas State. We were wrong. Josh Pate, the college football analyst, he took Iowa State. He won.
We had incorrect weather reports. We were assured that in Dublin the weather would be good. It was not good. It was raining. You, of all people, should know that it was going to rain no matter what the weather report was. It's true.
In Dublin. So, yeah, we had a fun time watching that in Vegas. Iowa State got the win 24-21. But, yeah, if you followed Josh Pate, you would have won over at FanDuel. So FanDuel is Check the Mic's presenting sponsor this football season. If you haven't signed up for FanDuel Sportsbook, do it right now. For new customers, if you win your first $5 wager, you get $300 in bonus bets.
Part of that show with Josh Pate was trying to find me a college football team to support, and we'll have an update on that later in the show.
We have an update. We've had some outstanding emails. Again, the interaction with the viewers and listeners, you guys, since the Josh Pate episode has been outstanding. Just need more people to go back. And week 1 of college football is this week, so you have plenty of time to go back and watch the Josh Pate preview episode. And then Josh all of a sudden shows up on ESPN. He's just all over the place.
He's everywhere.
I think we helped springboard him.
Of course.
To the ESPN deal that he got the next day. Mm-hmm. All right, let's talk rookies even more. I wanted to position this as, from what we've seen in the preseason, Sam, which rookies are going to make an impact mostly non-first rounders, but I want to start with a first rounder. So it would be cheating to just say, oh, Cam Ward's going to make an impact, and Abdul Carter's going to make an impact, and Travis Hunter. But there's one first rounder I wanted to highlight, maybe two, because these guys are kind of like changing the course of the season for a couple teams here, for various reasons relative to what we expected around the draft. So that's how I'm positioning this. Based off what we've seen in the preseason, we're going to name some rookies who are going to make an impact. Some are pretty clear. Some are players we've mentioned on the show a bunch.
We'll start with your first rounder then.
So the two first rounders that need to be mentioned here, Matthew Golden for the Packers and then Josh Simmons for the Chiefs, for various reasons. You and I were both a little bit lower on Matthew Golden relative to others, but he looks good in both our in-person exposure and during the during the preseason. So Golden has looked good, and I think he has a chance to change the course of the Packers season just because they've been sitting here with this unknown wide receiver one, go-to guy week in, week out. It's been a revolving door of Jaden Reed or Christian Watson or Romeo Doubs or whoever, Dontavian Wicks. Maybe Matthew Golden truly is the wide receiver one. And this might not be news to other people who are like, of course, Matthew Golden's awesome, right? He was my top wide receiver. He was my second wide receiver. I knew he was going to do that. But I think we've seen some stuff that says he could be the guy. And then Simmons, because a guy coming off the patellar injury was thought of as a top 15 type of prospect, falls all the way to 32 to the Kansas City Chiefs and doesn't miss any time. Just steps in from day one as the starting left tackle for the Chiefs and looks the part and has played very well, especially in pass protection. He has shored up the left side from a pass protection standpoint so far for the Chiefs, which we'll talk about more later. So those two first-round rookies, I think, stood out in their preseason performance that they're going to make a significant impact on the NFL in their respective teams this season.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like changing what we thought would be the case heading into kind of preseason minicamps, all those kinds of things. Like for the Packers, Matthew Golden hasn't necessarily changed some people's take, but it's definitely changed mine in terms of what he would likely do year one. He not only looks like obviously a clear starter for them, but a number one receiver, not just Green Bay's number one receiver, which I think are two fairly significantly different bars. He looks pretty spectacular, and the Packers, I think, are already treating him like he's that guy. They're dialing up things for him. They're using him in motion. They're trying to get him good looks as well. He looks fast, explosive. He looks smooth. He looks really good with the ball in the air as well. Generally, right now, he looks like a true number one option, and it might be the answer to that question of what happens to this Green Bay offense if you just plug a number one receiver into this group. Golden might be that guy right away, and that could be huge for the Packers.
So those two players stood out. And look, here's how big the Simmons thing was. Patrick Mahomes is great. Let me just preface everything with that, right? Great quarterback. That's what I think with Patrick Mahomes. He has been a little volatile when it comes to his left tackle, right? I mean, that sounds overly simplified, right? Oh, if anybody can't play quarterback if you don't have good protection. But when you go back and you look at Mahomes' worst games, could be the Super Bowl, last year against Cleveland, which doesn't really stand out because they won the game, but go back and watch. Various games over the last couple of years, when Mahomes has struggled on a throw-for-throw basis or not put up great numbers, it often coincides with the left tackle getting beat up in pass pro. Christmas 2 years ago when the Raiders beat him, right? There's not a lot of these games where Mahomes has just been well below average. There's not many of them, but when you go back, they almost always coincide with the left tackle was getting whooped. And that was whether it was DJ Humphries coming back off of injury and being a little bit older, whether it was Wanye Morris as a third-round developmental prospect, whether it's Kingsley Suamataia as a second-round developmental prospect. When the left tackle has struggled, Mahomes' performance struggles. Just go back and look. That's just what it's been. When the left tackle's decent, he's great. So if Josh Simmons is great in if he's good in pass protection, if he's just not bad in pass protection, and from what we've seen so far, he looks pretty good in pass pro. And I'm saying not giving up a lot of ground at all. Not giving up any sort of ground and, a lot of room to throw for Mahomes on the left side. If he is that good in pass pro, this Chiefs offense could be really good again. So he is that important. And again, I keep teasing. After we talk rookies, I want to talk more specifically about what we saw from the Chiefs, because I think this theory that I'm talking about showed up, for whatever it's worth, in this preseason game against the Bears. So those are the couple first rounders that stood out to me as having a significant impact. If Golden truly is a wide receiver one, if Josh Simmons is that good in pass protection, it changes the fortune of the Packers and Chiefs, respectively. There's other first rounders in there. I know there's other rookies, but those two stood out.
Yeah, I mean, Josh Simmons we thought was a great pick for the Chiefs, but because they went and got Jalen Moore in the offseason and free agency, you're like, well, they can bring him along slowly. They can bring him back from that knee injury, and maybe halfway through the season he can come in, or the future is secure. But instead, it's like, no, he's actually ready to rock right away, and they're going to give him the left tackle job right out of the gate. I mean, if he's that player, the potential. I mean, they basically stole half a round's worth of value based off injury uncertainty for the Chiefs. That would be, I mean, maybe more than half a round based off him as a prospect healthy. That's insane. I mean, that could be huge.
All right. Do you have any other names, or do you want to just go through?
No, for the first round guys, I think that's fine.
All right. Other names that we've brought up or discussed here previously or that stood out. Dante Thornton.
Yep.
Raiders wide receiver. Mm-hmm. Had a touchdown the other night, as I predicted before it happened. As soon as I saw the Raiders as one of those teams rolling with the ones against the Cardinals threes, I suggested a long touchdown. It was only like 20-something yards. But Dante Thornton looks like the number 2 receiver for the Raiders. Jacoby Myers as your high-volume possession type, along with Brock Bowers as a high-volume possession type. And then Dante Thornton coming out of this Tennessee offense at 6'5", running a 4.3, and essentially, getting first-team reps over second-rounder Jack Besh. And we've seen this happen every now and again. Thornton drafted in the 4th round, Besh in the 2nd round, and Thornton overtaking the guy that they thought was better than him just a few months ago because they drafted him 2 rounds higher. But Thornton brings just a big play dynamic to that Raiders offense, and they are trying to get him the ball so far in the preseason.
Yeah, I mean, best example, I think, of any player this offseason in terms of totally and immediately changing the thought process of what he was going to be, certainly year one. Low round guy, not expected to be a massive dynamic impact playmaker right away. And then almost immediately, there were reports coming from, Raiders beat that this guy's running with the first team. And to the extent where, when it comes out initially, you're like, yeah, but it's only because half the first team's missing. You know what I mean? In mini camps or whatever. And then it's sustained all the way through into training camp and into preseason. He is genuinely running with the first team. And, I'm not sure that necessarily means that, Jack Besh's problem, I think, is there's a lot of redundancy in his skill set with Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers already there, whereas Thornton's biggest asset right now is he brings something completely different to the table to any of those other guys. 6'5", 4.3 speed. I mean, basically the end. You already have a very different skill set to what's out there. And even if he is a one-dimensional player, that one dimension should be on the field more often than not for the Raiders because of what they already have out there. So, yeah, he's looked dynamic. He's looked explosive. I think that's a great find for the Raiders.
Again, apologize if some of these names are redundant, but we're summing up the preseason, right? These are the rookies to know for this year, for non-first rounders who are going to make an impact. The next one's Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt. Bill to some.
Bill Merritt.
Bill Crosky-Merritt. I like Bill Merritt. I like just calling him Bill Merritt.
Just because it conjures up images of, local country golf pro.
A 7th-round pick out of Arizona who they love enough in Washington to trade Brian Robinson. Maybe they were going to trade him anyway. But Crosky-Merritt is a 7th-rounder, getting big hype in fantasy circles.
Yeah.
Sat out week 3 of the preseason. A slasher, sharp-cutting type. Mike Renner, who's going to be on the show Wednesday, was the first to bring up Crosky-Merritt last fall and had a big impact on his rise, I think. So we'll talk about that maybe briefly with Mike on Wednesday. But Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt, or Bill to some, going to make an impact this year for the Commanders.
Yeah, and even independent of whether he forced the trade of Brian Robinson or he was just the beneficiary of it, the point is that's a guy that's no longer in his way. And one of the other guys that is theoretically in his way is Austin Eckler, who's getting on in years and has had some injuries in recent seasons. So this is maybe as clear a pathway as you're going to find for a guy that was not drafted in the first round to be the alpha running back in a backfield. And what a backfield to be the alpha running back in, because Jaden Daniels is your quarterback. So you get that Lamar Jackson bump of, this guy changes the way the defensive fronts play run defense. He changes the math. He changes the looks. And Krosky Merritt is potentially going to be the beneficiary of that. So, yeah, I think absolutely minimum he's going to be a significant part of this backfield. And the high end is he's going to be the number one guy there.
I just think he's a better fit than Brian Robinson for that spread offense. Brian Robinson, a 230-pound, kind of a high-cut bruiser who did not force a lot of missed tackles last year. And if you go back and watch Brian Robinson's biggest plays, they were blocked up really well for him and not a lot of creation on his own. I think Krosky Merritt has a chance to do both, right? To create big plays when it's there and then also make guys miss in short areas that I think is more beneficial to this Washington offense. So keep an eye on him, as many of you already are. Fringe first rounder Carson Schweschinger has had a really nice preseason. I highlighted him after week 1, the linebacker for the Cleveland Browns. In a year where Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, one of the better linebackers in the NFL, he's out for the season, career maybe in question due to his injuries. Schweschinger looks like a day one starter. It felt like a bit of a need pick because they knew what JOK was going to do, but it wasn't like a reach for the Browns. But I love the way he's just been taking on blocks, finishing plays around the line of scrimmage, athletic and inexperienced at UCLA, under 1,000 snaps in college, but was very good last year as a breakout player and looks like he's going to make an immediate impact for the Browns defense.
Yeah, and green dot guy. So, another relatively rare instance of a rookie coming in and being given effectively the defensive communication device, the quarterback for the defense. You don't tend to see that often. So, we were already expecting he was probably going to be a significant part of this defense based off where they drafted him, et cetera, but fairly clear indications that they're not just settling for that. They're happy with how he's doing. They're tossing him the keys to the whole defense.
No one will be surprised by the next name I'm going to mention here. Detroit Lions wide receiver Isaac TeSlaa. Another touchdown last week. 3 touchdowns in the preseason. He had an extra game to do it with the Hall of Fame game, but 3 touchdowns. As a vertical threat, size, speed, and good hands. Lions went up and got him in the 3rd round. TeSlaa making the show for like the 12th straight time here. But someone to keep an eye on. There's not a ton of extra targets to go around with Detroit, but they've done a really nice job of sprinkling in different types of playmakers. So with him and Jameson Williams on the field at the same time, good luck with that level of speed and verticality added once again to this Detroit offense. Yeah,
I mean, he's a classic example, I think, now of we just need to figure out what his role is going to be, how much of a role they're going to give him. I mean, it feels like he's battling for the Tim Patrick snaps from a year ago. And Tim Patrick's a good receiver. I mean, those are not...
Oh, I know.
Those are not easy snaps or an easy role to jump over as a guy on the depth chart. Like, that's a significant milestone to surpass Tim Patrick. But in preseason, I mean, he's shown he's got the skill set is there. Hands, speed, size, all those things are good. He's still a work in progress, I think, in terms of some route running stuff and some nuance, but the physical skill set is there for him to be a part of this offense.
Next 2 players, slightly different from a size perspective. Start with Tez Johnson.
A little bit.
Bucs wide receiver. Had a big preseason week 3, had 7 catches, had a touchdown, did a backflip. He was like the hero of the NFL Twitter account the other night. Every other tweet was either the video of the backflip or screenshots of him doing the backflip.
Well, because he did a backflip with style points. I'm sure there's like a technical gymnastic term for this, but it wasn't just like a backflip where the legs are bent, you're a fairly tight circle. Like he extended the legs out. So it was like a longer arc to the backflip. It was pretty impressive looking.
Can't teach that. You can't teach that.
I mean, I'm sure you can. That's why gymnastics exists. But
he's another 7th round pick who was a dynamic college football player.
And then had a weird 40.
But he looked fast the other night.
He did.
He looked fast.
Well, he looked fast even when he was running his weird 40. It just made no sense.
Dynamic college football player who you and I both said, okay, size-wise, it's going to be difficult. Size similar to Tank Dell a couple years ago, but Tank Dell in college, you saw him used in more traditional wide receiver roles. You saw him make plays down the field and used as a vertical threat. Tez Johnson was used the way his skill set would dictate, which is more of a gimmick type of player, a lot of short stuff, a lot of screens, a lot of space type of plays. But that's carried over into the preseason. And then what felt like, hey, this is a really deep Bucs wide receiver group, all of a sudden, we know Chris Godwin was coming off of injury. The report is he's not going to see the field till probably October or so. You have Jalen McMillan, last year's third rounder, who did some nice stuff. He's on injured reserve with the intent to return a little bit later in the year. And, of course, you have fellow rookie Emeka Egbuka. So now, all of a sudden, Tez, who's just a good football player, there is a more specific role for him, or at least opportunities for him, maybe not in the traditional way, but, yeah, he can run some routes. He can get open underneath. He can work from the slot, and he's really good with the ball in his hands. I think Tez Johnson shows he can have an impact this year.
Yeah, I mean, his 40 time never made any sense, and neither did his draft slide, honestly, because to me, we talk all the time about the level of certainty for players in the draft, and that's part of the equation. Number one, how good do you think they can be, sort of ceiling versus floor? But then number two, how confident are you in either one of those things? I think there's absolutely a debate as to where Tez Johnson's ceiling lies and how valuable that is. But I think there was very little doubt about the certainty that he's going to be a decent player in the NFL. Like, he's going to contribute. The stuff that he's good at, he's so obviously good at it, it's difficult to come to the conclusion that there's no way that would work. To me, those players, like when you have a guy that you definitely know is going to be a useful player on the roster and a contributor on Sundays, those guys are worth early day 3 picks to me, right? Because you basically know they're going to be good. Whereas some other guys, most day 3 guys, it's a complete crapshoot about whether they're going to do anything at the next level. I mean, just watch what he did at the Senior Bowl against all-star level competition. Like, that guy was uncoverable all week. And not just uncoverable, but it was so far open on most of these plays. I mean, he's going to get to the NFL and do that to NFL players. And he did. Like, as soon as we've seen him, training camp, preseason, anytime you give the guy the opportunity, he is getting open. Now, is he going to be just, a slot player that has a limited, yeah, sure, maybe. But even that is worth, it's worth grabbing because that's a useful player. And now with the injuries that have opened up, yeah, I think we're going to see definite contributions from Tez Johnson.
Yeah, I like Tez, man. And like I said, next 2 players, slightly different size-wise. Deon Walker for the Buffalo Bills, 4th rounder. I've mentioned him a ton just because he was such a fascinating prospect. But he was a roller coaster ride of emotions watching his film. He goes into the 2024 season as an not expected first-round pick, but he certainly had first-round hype because the dude is 340 pounds and he moves really well. When you go back and watch Deon Walker's best plays, it's not pure power, it's movement, it's dancing bear type of stuff. It's quickness up and down the line of scrimmage. So usually if you're 340 with quickness, it's like, all right, of course you're going in the first round. And then last year, he's battling a back injury. He's never really been this hold the point type of player despite his size. And there were some plays where he's moved, and he shouldn't be at that size. So he's inconsistent from a film perspective and goes in the 4th round, in part because of inconsistent tape, in part because of probably the previous back injury, which was described as a broken back right, that he had. And so for me, that's like, absolutely you take that flyer in the 4th round. I described the Bills draft as between him, between TJ Sanders, between their actual first-round pick, Maxwell Hairston. They had 3 players that at least got some level of first-round hype. And Landon Jackson, 4 players that had some level of somewhere along the line were described as late first-round type of prospects. And they got 4 of them. I love that as a process. And Deon Walker has shown some very, very nice flashes from a pass rush perspective this offseason. Combine that with the fact that they have this big-bodied type on the line with your undersized rushers like Sanders, like Ed Oliver. I love that. Now, throwing a little bit of cold water on this analysis is the report, that the Bills are bringing Jordan Phillips in to sign, who is a similar 340-pound, more nimble than stout styled player, pass rush than run defense type of player historically. And he's been an okay NFL player. I don't know why they're doing that, given all the depth that they have on the defensive line. But I just think Walker has shown, believe it or not, at 340, as a designated pass rush type, get him out there as a different style player for teams to block, I think Walker has a chance to make an impact. I have no idea if Jordan Phillips now coming in steals some of those snaps.
I don't think it should. I don't think he's been particularly good at this either, but I feel like Jordan Phillips is more of a run-focused move than Deion Walker is. Like, Walker's looked really good as a pass rusher because he's actually shown that quickness at that size. Hasn't looked particularly good in run defense, and he's one of these guys where at 6'6", like, he's top heavy. I mean, it's kind of like Kenneth Grant as well. Like, a lot of his plays, it's winning for a guy that's 340 pounds. You wouldn't expect them to win this way, but they do. They win with that initial quickness, and oftentimes they do it with like those upright swim moves. The downside of that is if you don't win with that initial move, you're way up high at 6'6". A guy is immediately underneath you and you're getting moved. So that's the risk with a guy like Deion Walker. But I think he'll get a lot of pressure based off what we've seen so far. Jordan Phillips feels like more of a run-focus addition. I mean, he had that one season where he had 10 sacks or whatever it was, but it was based off like 19 pressures. He's never been a particularly good pass rusher.
In a pass rush type of role these last couple of years. More rushing the passer than run defense.
But he's never actually been good at it.
Yeah, he's been a better pass rusher than run defender too. So I don't know. We'll see what happens here. I just think Deion Walker has a chance to make an impact on a Bills defensive line that has added incredible depth this year. And my expectations aren't that Walker plays 600, 700 snaps. It's just, hey, 20 to 25 snaps a game. Can you get out there and create a different type of impact that our other players don't have, that our other defensive linemen don't have? And I think Walker has some of that. Mm-hmm. Let me skip around. One more defensive tackle to mention. Jamari Caldwell, third rounder for the Los Angeles Chargers. Opposite of Walker. This dude looks like just a really stout run defender. He did some of this at Oregon last year anyway. But he's got this resetting the line of scrimmage ability. Again, different from Walker. You don't have a lot of Deion Walker plays where you're like stack and shed the center and reset the line of scrimmage and making plays in the run game. You just have fewer of those from a Deion Walker. Caldwell brings this to the table, and this is important for the Chargers because other than a little bit of Poona Ford coming in there doing it the way he does it, the Chargers have been looking for a big-bodied run stopper at defensive tackle for the better part of a decade here. And Caldwell, initially in the preseason, they drafted him to maybe do this, but he's looked like he has the ability to do that for the Chargers.
Yeah, I think there have been a couple of guys that I think have looked pretty good in that kind of run defense, nose tackle-y type performance. Yahya Black for the Steelers has had a really good preseason doing some of that stuff as well. So I think that's a valuable skill set that gets overlooked a lot. And
I'll add because I had somebody on Twitter mention the Dolphins' defensive tackles when I posed the question, hey, which rookies are making an impact? They have a Jordan Phillips of their own, who's a rookie. Different body type from the Jordan Phillips that the Bills are signing, but Phillips has looked good.
That's just asking for confusion.
Yes. That Phillips has looked good for the Dolphins, and then Kenneth Grant looked good as far as the way he's played the run, and he's had few of those Caldwell-like plays of stack and shed and make plays at the line of scrimmage and disrupt in the run game. So I think both of those Dolphins defensive tackles, Yahya Black, who you mentioned, Jamari Caldwell, I think all of those rookie defensive tackles have done a nice job early on. Mm-hmm. And then to just wrap it up, and we'll let the chat tell us the 100 names that they're excited about that we forgot to mention. This is not an exclusive list. This is just the players that came to mind. But Travion Henderson for the New England Patriots. I believe it's The Athletic writing about, hey, guy hasn't taken an NFL snap yet, but he's already the Patriots' best playmaker. And I don't think that's a wild statement based off what we've seen from Travion Henderson, Ohio State, rookie running back here in the preseason.
No, agreed. Travion Henderson looks like he's going to be really, really good. And maybe most importantly, because one of his biggest assets is his pass protection, he can play every single down. Like, he's not in a world where you're like, we really like this playmaker, but he can't pick up the blitz. We can't really trust him being out there for 65% of the snaps that we're going to have. So his role is capped. Travion Henderson, if they want to play him 100% of the snaps, he can play 100% of the snaps. He can be a receiver, he can be a pass blocker, and he can run the ball. And apparently he can return kicks to the house as well. So, I mean, the sky's the limit in terms of what he can do in that offense.
All right, listeners, viewers, let us know in the chat. Who else did we forget? Who did we forget? This was not an exhaustive list was the word I was looking for. This isn't every rookie that's potentially going to make an impact. Just players that we've either raved about these last few weeks or caught the eye again this week in Tez Johnson's case. Who are the players that are going to make an impact this season as rookies? All right, got a quick break to talk about our friends over at Root Insurance. Root Insurance believes that good drivers deserve better rates, so they've created a new kind of car insurance that rewards good drivers in an easy-to-use app. That's the key here. Traditional car insurance companies focus on demographics like age, zip code, occupation, and credit score to price their coverage. When Root offers a rate, though, your behavior behind the wheel gets more weight than any other single factor. They don't use occupation or education level to negatively affect your rate. So while you drive, Root gathers and analyzes data from your smartphone sensors. After a few weeks, you'll get a car insurance quote based primarily on your driving. Save up to 44% off your initial Root quote after you take the test drive. If you need a tow truck, a jump start, or if you lock your keys in the car, Root will cover the help that you need to get back on the road when you opt into roadside assistance. The Root app makes it easy to edit your coverage, update your policy, or file a claim in just 3 minutes. You can get started today at root.com. I imagine if you and I are being tracked, me and my minivan, you and your Matchbox car.
It's Hot Wheels, not Matchbox.
It's a Matchbox. Same size. Your Hot Wheels versus my minivan, I'll be on the safer side than you.
I had one of those. A competing insurance company had a similar device years ago that I had to get in order to get the cheaper policy, and I was perfectly fine.
You were good?
Not a problem.
Okay. One thing I wanted to touch on here. I don't know how much am I over? Am I weighing this too much? Let me ask you. The Chiefs looked really good the other night. 3 drives from the offense with Mahomes under center and all the starters against Bears starters.
Mm-hmm.
They go 2 touchdowns and a field goal. Should have been 3 touchdowns, but Isaiah Pacheco drops a would-be touchdown in the end zone. It should have been 21-0. Mahomes looking sharp. Mahomes hitting Tyquan Thornton down the field with a bomb against who I've called maybe the worst cornerback in the NFL, Nashawn Wright. But fine. The Bears starters plus Nashawn Wright. The Chiefs looked really good.
Yeah.
And going back to my previous point about the importance of Josh Simmons, I'm telling you, when they get the left tackle right, that offense can cook. And last year at this time, we were saying, hey, they're going to attack down the field. They have Marquise Brown. They have Xavier Worthy. They have all this speed. Well, they have similar speed this year. Marquise Brown's been banged up, but Tyquan Thornton comes in with his 4.2-something speed. Worthy there. Travis Kelce, by the way, in a couple catches. He made a guy miss, Sam. I don't have the stats in front of me, but he forced like 3 missed tackles.
The first time since 2022.
I'm telling you, Kelce may have worked out this offseason instead of going on tour.
I think he said something like that he was kind of annoyed with himself and that he sort of let his standards slip a little bit. And, I mean, maybe, there were no real signs of his decline before there were signs of his decline. I know that sounds utterly ridiculous, but like if the decline was not age and was other distractions, then there's no reason he can't turn it back on.
So am I overrating this? Yeah, the defense looked pretty good too against the Bears starters, but the Chiefs offense looked great. And all the reports coming out of Chiefs camp, it's like, oh, Mahomes is locked in, and we know this with the great ones.
The great ones.
Doubt Brady, doubt Rodgers, doubt some of these guys through the years, doubt Peyton Manning coming off a neck injury. When you doubt those guys, oftentimes you get their best. And we have a whole offseason where people say, oh, Mahomes not the best anymore, and terrible Super Bowl performance, and everything coming out of camp saying that he's locked in, and this looked like he's really locked in. The Chiefs' offense looked incredible.
They're a great example of, like this whole preseason, what does it mean stuff. Well, I think the Chiefs are 0-3 this preseason, and yet I think their starting unit has looked as good as any team in the NFL. Like every time the starters play, it's like touchdown drive.
To contrast things, I made my joke probably 4 years ago now. They were coming off their Super Bowl loss against the Bucs, and Mahomes had like one drive or one game. I think it was against the Cardinals, and he was like 1 for 5. He was sailing throws left and right.
Right.
And during that preseason, I said the opposite. Oh man, joking around, of course. The Bucs have broken Mahomes. What if he never recovers? And of course, in 21, they go to the AFC Championship. They were great offensively until the collapse then, and then 22 and 23 they win the Super Bowl. So, I guess my question is, does any of this matter? Because they looked great for whatever that's worth in a preseason game against other starters.
I would be very interested in seeing some kind of, team level data, stats, record, if you like, of just when the starters are in, right? Like, obviously, a preseason record doesn't mean anything when even, like, you might have an example like this where the starters look like they're absolutely on fire and the backups are not, and so you're 0-3. Does it mean anything even if you discovered this number, this record of teams of starters versus backups? No, but I would say that it might mean something for week one. Like, this is the Bengals thing, right? The Bengals have played starters for the first time in a few years, and the Bengals have started slowly every season for years. I wonder if that's going to be the case because their starters look pretty dialed in. Maybe this year, week one, Joe Burrow and the Bengals are actually going to come out and look like Joe Burrow and the Bengals because they've gotten, some work in preseason. So I could imagine a world where Kansas City's offense hits the ground running and looks great. I think overall the Chiefs would have been the Chiefs whether they were playing badly or well in this preseason.
So it doesn't mean anything.
Other than week one.
Yeah.
In
Brazil against the Chargers, which I just hope the field is better. I can't stand when the footing on the field for the Eagles Packers game felt like a major issue. Like, nobody could hold their footing and everything. Who the heck knows?
They were bitching about it, and they were bitching about the footing in Dublin as well. It's like anytime we have this whole world where everyone's like, turf is awful, let's have everything on grass. And then every single game that's played on grass is like, the field conditions were sloppy and we couldn't, maintain our footing.
Yeah, that's what happens on grass.
Right. I mean, figure it out. Either figure it out or stop complaining about the turf.
Right. Grass is either better for safety or it's better, and you have to sacrifice footing.
Right.
When it, rains. That's what happens.
Yeah, sometimes you're going to slip on grass. That's just how it works.
Also worth touching on from a Bears perspective, Tyson Bagent signed a deal over last week. We touched on that a little bit here on the YouTube channel with a reaction video, but signed to be the backup, and then he goes this week and throws a game-winning touchdown against the Chiefs for whatever that's worth. But Bagent's look good. Our friend Mike Renner, who will be on the show Wednesday, just tweeting out that the Bears got a steal from Tyson Bagent. And the more I've watched Bagent, both in person, at the joint practice, during the preseason, I agree, man. That dude runs the offense, makes some really good decisions and throws. I love this for the Bears to lock him up as the backup, and love it for Bagent, who teared up after being a Division II prospect and taking care of the family with this multi-million-dollar deal.
Yeah, I think it's a good move for both sides. Bagent's look good, and Ben Johnson, if he does have that ability, like Kevin O'Connell, like Matt LaFleur, to improve the ability of all the quarterbacks under his tutelage, essentially. Obviously, the focus of that is going to be Caleb Williams and what he can become as a starter, but it also raises the ability of Bagent as well, who's already looked pretty useful. Like, not necessarily a guy you want to have starting long-term, but maybe his ceiling as a backup is higher with Ben Johnson as well.
All right, we have a lot of trades to unpack, so stick around for the trades. We're going to go through all the trades and all of the deep meaning behind the trades. But first, with the NFL season almost here, all of our schedules are getting busy, Sam. So sometimes you only have a couple minutes to prep for a meal.
Before golf.
That's where Factor helps you. Oh, this is perfect. You should have Factor meals all season.
Just feeding the child Factor every day.
Beautiful. You get Eat Smarter with tasty chef-prepared meals that are delivered right to your door. Got my Factor last week and into this week, and I love it. I got a whole week's worth of meals. It's easy to use, especially if you have a microwave, unlike me. But a microwave.
I can't believe you have a microwave.
I don't need a microwave. I have an oven. Microwave, you can get these things done in 3 minutes. Oven, it's a little bit longer, but it's better. So I love having my Factor meals, and man, they are good. I've had some protein-centric meals. It's salmon and shrimp. I got filet mignon coming in. It's been great. Factor has more than 65 weekly meals that are made for how you live and what you like to eat. So you can choose from a wider variety of meal options, including premium seafood choices like I have, salmon and shrimp, at no extra cost. So I took advantage of that. That's a good deal. With new Mediterranean diet options packed with protein and good-for-you fats, Factor help you support your wellness goals. 97% of customers say that Factor helped them live a healthier life. So eat smart at factormeals.com/CTM50off. That's right, CTM50off. That's what you need to remember. Use code CTM50off. CTM50off to get 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. Whoa. I didn't know that part of it. Free breakfast for a year. That's code CTM50off at factormeals.com for 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. Get delicious, ready-to-eat meals delivered with Factor. Offer only valid for new Factor customers with code and qualifying auto-renewing subscription purchase. So go check that out. That's a good deal.
And you were saying you really enjoy the drinks as well.
Yeah, I don't know how much. I mean, they sent us a bunch of sample drinks like carrot juice and various things. They're just healthy drink options.
Yeah, I'm not a healthy drink kind of person.
I know you're not. So I got
big into them.
I got 8 of them, right? 2 packages of 4, and my wife was fighting me for those. So I was like, she's like, you take the meals, I'll take the drinks. I said, no, I'll give you a couple of these drinks. And then I walk in yesterday, she's drinking the carrot juice and loving it. So good, healthy drinks that I'm fighting my wife for.
Just a couple of people trying to get healthy drinks over there.
We're all just trying to be healthy. All right, there's a million trades that happened. Every 6th and or 7th round pick in the NFL has been moved in the last 2 weeks, 2 days.
Okay.
Don't check me on that. There's a lot of 6th round pick swaps happening.
Do any of them mean anything?
The biggest one, I think, is Brian Robinson.
Okay.
Brian Robinson and Harrison Phillips, I'd say. Brian Robinson going from the Commanders to the 49ers for a 2026 6th round pick. The Commanders are paying some of the salary for Robinson, so it's cheap for the Niners, with the Commanders essentially paying some money for a free 6th rounder for a guy that they didn't have in their plans, as we've said. I think they soured on Robinson for a couple reasons down the stretch last year. He wasn't creating a lot on his own. There was a 2-play sequence in their big game against the Eagles, last regular season game, where he had a 4th and 1, didn't really lower his pads and finish like a 230-pounder should, gets stuffed on 4th and 1, and then fumbles. I think it was his next carry. And I feel like those things added up where the Commanders just said, he's not a fit for us. The guy had 10 touchdowns last year. What?
You were railing against out-of-context quotes earlier. Where you just take a quote and then chop off the stuff, ... JJ in the chat is suggesting we create a quote graphic from Steve Palazzolo that simply says, I'm fighting my wife. Just drop out all the context.
I'm fighting my wife.
Yeah.
About Factor drinks.
Nah. We chop out the context. Doesn't matter. Just say Steve Palazzolo on CTM this morning.
Steve's fighting his wife. Fighting with his wife. By the way, you had the PSA for everybody to block Dov during the season. Please repeat that.
If you are accidentally following Dov Kleiman, or if you haven't followed him but haven't blocked him yet, I would suggest doing so. He is literally, at this point, a professional troll. That is an account that somebody purchased and is now genuinely using it to just try and make money. Like they post not just like out of context quote, but they like genuinely misleading stuff to try and farm engagement to make money off it. So everybody should block that account and never see it again.
Good PSA. So Brian Robinson to the Niners, we had a little. Come on. I hope Kelly's not watching.
Quotes on the screen now for anyone listening.
I love you, honey. If you're watching.
Well, that one's not making a quote graphic.
No. I love you, comma, honey. From Steve to his wife. Brian Robinson. We had a little video on this on the channel as well. Went live from Circa. I feel like this is one of the more significant ones because their running back issue, all their skilled players are hurt, plus Christian McCaffrey coming off of his injury last year.
Yeah, so they've kind of basically said already he's their primary backup. It's an interesting addition for them because you would generally put that Shanahan offense into the same kind of category as Washington's offense in terms of more zone than old school gap type of blocking. But Shanahan has integrated that more into his offense over the years. It's not like the old school Broncos, Alex Gibbs, pure outside zone every time that some people think it still is. So it's an interesting fit. I kind of like Brian Robinson as a player. He hasn't always played to the level that I think he can, but I think it's a good fit, or a good addition rather, to San Francisco's backfield. And then from Washington's point of view, getting like a pure 6th-round pick for a guy it sounded like you were probably going to cut anyway is good business, even if you had to eat some money to make it happen.
Yeah, by the way, I've kind of liked Brian Robinson too. I was surprised that they soured on him. I was surprised that Washington was so intent on potentially drafting a running back. I love Corey Krosky-Merritt, though, and what he brings to the table that is, a little bit different. I also love the guy behind Brian Robinson, Chris Rodriguez, who even last year when we were doing our late game previews for Washington, I kept saying, give Rodriguez a few more carries. He's looked pretty good this preseason, and he's got some tackle breaking ability and ability, I think, to add the different dynamic or replace the dynamic that Robinson brought to that offense. Maybe even do it a little bit better. The one other part about Robinson, I think he is more of a downhill runner, right? So inside zone, power counter duo type of runs where you're getting downhill, not so much the wide zone stuff that Shanahan has mostly made it, a name for himself with through the years. So that's a change of pace as well. Can he run the outside zone stuff? Yeah, sure, but it's not. I don't think that's necessarily his strength. But if you want to add a little bit more of a downhill type of component, think more Debo. When they handed Debo the ball, it was more of a downhill type of system. And so that change of pace with McCaffrey, I think, could add some value to that Niners offense.
Yeah.
Great. And then Harrison Phillips is the other one that I was thinking, just because the Jets have Quinnen Williams, my guy Leonard Taylor III, who I like quite a bit.
The third.
But no real stout, not even stout, just nose tackle type like Harrison Phillips. Phillips he's good against downhill runs coming right at him. So if Brian Robinson is running Harrison Phillips, Phillips is going to destroy some blocks and make some plays. How's that?
Perfect.
Undersized nose tackle type, but that's been the role that he's been playing for the Vikings. He's a pretty good run defender, not much of a pass rusher, but something that the Jets don't have, but also something the Vikings don't necessarily have. The Vikings have a lot of defensive tackles in name, but not a lot of nose tackle types.
Yeah, it's interesting because of getting rid of him, I think.
By the way, the trade was the Jets. The Jets traded for Harrison Phillips from the Vikings for the late round pick swap.
Yes. Generally speaking, I think a fairly solid rule of thumb is if the trade in question is only for a pick swap, it is inconsequential in nature. Because that is essentially saying, we don't want to give you anything, really, but you're getting rid of this guy anyway, so just send him this way, and we can bypass, claims and that kind of thing. So I think that would take care of most trades at this kind of period if you looked at them through that lens. But Harrison Phillips is interesting because, he was a team captain for the Vikings. He's a player that's been playing a lot. You can question how valuable his play has been, but he plays a lot for them and as a team captain, and they don't really have that skill set outside of him. So even though they're getting basically nothing in return, to me, the interesting element of that is the fact that he was apparently this inconsequential, lacked this kind of value, and potentially was therefore on the roster bubble anyway, and they might have cut him. And I wouldn't have thought, if you had asked any Vikings beat reporter, is Harrison Phillips going to make the roster this season? I doubt very much whether they would have said no.
Every other defensive tackle type on the Vikings, the two additions, Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave, the guy that I've raved about this offseason, Jalen Redmond, who I don't know if I put in there, breakout player watch or whatever it was on that show. Redmond played really good ball in limited time last year. They're all gap shooting types. Mm-hmm. Maybe Allen, you would say, is a block destroyer type, but even then, that's not really his game at this point in his career. So most of these types of players, you would say Allen, Hargrave, Redmond, penetrators, better pass rushers than run defenders, even though I thought Redmond was really disruptive in the run game. Harrison Phillips was the one guy you said is a hold-the-point disruptor, block destroyer type. So it's a different style. I still think Minnesota, their pure four-man rush, when they have Grenard and Van Ginkel off the edge with Allen and Hargrave on the interior, like that four-man rush and whatever they want to do with Dallas Turner, sprinkling in, and whatever they want to do with Jalen Redmond, that top six pass rushers, say, is really good and among the best in the NFL. Just stylistically, they're losing a body type or a play style type that they don't necessarily have to replace on the roster, which is an interesting dynamic for Minnesota.
Yeah.
And all that said, they played the run pretty well last year, in part because they're always going to have an extra man in the box. That's how they play with Flores, and I think they can stop the run with fewer excellent run defenders, we'll say. Whereas the Jets also were lacking that body and have more of a nose tackle type to go with Quinnen Williams, to go with Leonard Taylor, who are more of your gap shooting, penetrating types. So that was the one trade that kind of stood out to me, along with Brian Robinson.
The other one I think that's interesting is Sam Howell, the Viking. We said We speculated something like this might be on the radar in terms of the Vikings being worried about their backup quarterback situation because Sam Howell had not looked good. Well, they sent him away. They got rid of him, traded him to the Philadelphia Eagles, and then replaced him by signing Carson Wentz off the street. And there's a lot of people that have been making that point of how is Carson Wentz not on an NFL roster already? I mean, he is unquestionably one of the best, 90 quarterbacks in the NFL, even if he's not one of the best 32, and he might be one of the best 32. So I think Minnesota
one
did
of the
well
best
there.
90.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, 90 plus. Like, how many NFL quarterbacks are currently rostered?
Yeah, just
A
saying.
lot.
That's a standard that you put out there. Yeah.
So people were like, "Why is Carson Wentz not on the team?" Well, now he is. Now he's potentially the principal backup for an unknown commodity in rookie performance, rookie year, rookie on the field version of JJ McCarthy.
I agree with that. Yeah. So Wentz coming in, that makes a lot of sense, and then the buy low-ish on Sam Howell. I mean, a 5th-round pick and a pick swap, that's a little something there.
Right.
From the Vikings.
So it's interesting. Number one.
A lot of teams are trying to buy low on Sam Howell, bring him in as a hey, maybe he'll develop someday guy.
From the Vikings' perspective, this is great. I think you potentially upgraded a backup quarterback and you got something for the guy that you had no faith in the first place. That's fantastic. It's interesting because now Carson Wentz goes from the street / the couch to one play away from potentially being the Minnesota Vikings starting quarterback. That's interesting. Anybody as quarterback getting paired up with Kevin O'Connell is interesting. Carson Wentz is a talented player. Like, that dude is physically talented and has underachieved in his NFL career. Generally, he's now getting paired up with the quarterback whisperer in Kevin O'Connell. So these are all interesting things from that point of view. And then from the Eagles' point of view, they maintain this sort of fairly consistent theme of rolling the dice and trading for cast-off veteran quarterbacks. They did it with Kenny Pickett. They got rid of him. Now they're doing it with Sam Howell. That's interesting. And then the other element is you are also, though, buying low on a guy that was paired with the quarterback whisperer who took about 7 minutes to decide that actually this guy just stinks and got rid of him.
Seattle took a shot on Sam Howell. Minnesota did for a little bit.
Right.
And he's off to the Eagles.
Like, we're a couple of months removed from being like, Kevin O'Connell is going to work with Sam Howell now. That's interesting because Kevin O'Connell's got, and now he's like, nah, that guy sucks. Get him out of here.
And the Eagles already have Tanner McKee and Kyle McCord.
Right.
Like Tanner McKee in particular, who's looked great during the preseason. But they're the next team to kind of take a shot on Sam Howell. Max Brosmer, by the way, is a undrafted free agent from the University of Minnesota, looked good during this preseason. So that's where Minnesota's sitting there with him as a developmental player,
like
Wentz as the backup.
A 5th-round pick is not nothing for a guy.
I know. I mean, and then the pick swap. But it's like, yeah, a 5th for Howell. Maybe that's why they got him. They knew someone else would value him at some point. It's funny. I keep thinking Kwesi has done some really subtle good things. And the worst thing that he's done overall, the worst thing that's come out of Minnesota is just the overall draft hit rate or what they've brought in the draft over the last couple of years. I'm not saying it's been terrible. I'm just saying a lot of the other moves Kwesi has made have been good. The other place where Minnesota was rumored to be involved, there was some rumors that they had inquired about bringing Adam Thielen back to Minnesota.
I think they became official. I think there was speculation for a while that the Vikings and Thielen would make a lot of sense, and then I think it was an official report that they had actually inquired.
So nothing's happened. Well, the report from Schefter is they inquired about Adam Thielen, but the Panthers are reluctant, clearly because the trade hasn't happened yet. So by definition, they're reluctant because it hasn't happened. So what are your thoughts on that move for both teams here? Panthers with some young – they've got some depth at receiver, and they're young. And then the Vikings have this Jordan Addison's suspended issue.
Yeah.
And then even when Addison's back, if Adam Thielen was the 3-man, that is intriguing. I just don't know what the price tag would be here.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense from Minnesota's point of view because Addison is suspended and you need a number 2 that you can rely on outside of Justin Jefferson. And then, as you said, even when Addison is back, that number 3 spot is one they haven't really been able to nail down over the last couple of years. So I think it makes a ton of sense from Minnesota's point of view. Obviously, he knows the system. He's got experience of the place as well. Like it's a natural fit from their point of view. it makes some sense from Carolina's point of view as well, if you think that Jalen Coker is going to be able to pick up where he left off last season. And
Xavier Legette.
Or if you think a guy like Legette is going to be able to develop year two. Because they still relied on Dillon a lot last year. And even if you expect Tetero and McMillan to hit the ground running and be their number one guy, it's still a significant role to be getting rid of within that offense unless you have a lot of confidence in those young guys, essentially making him redundant anyway, and then you can cash in now as opposed to let him go.
To me, that would be the risk from Carolina's perspective would be the most known commodity, which is Thielen, which, of course, he's getting older. When you get older, injuries, losing a step, all of that stuff.
He's the safest receiver that they have on the roster right now.
He is.
Bryce Young still, it's not Bryce Young. Let's call him like let's say his development is currently fragile, because he took a huge step forward. Is that real? It's a big year for Bryce Young, and to be taking away what I think is still his safest commodity at wide receiver would be at least risky.
Even if you think Tetero and McMillan's a star,
right?
Thielen is the most dependable. In the possession world, middle of the field, out of the slot, runs the slot fade, these throws that Bryce Young throws well, versus if you did get rid of him, your top three are all first or second year receivers.
Yeah.
Even if McMillan's a star, Legette and Jalen Coker, it's a young group. So that would be the risk for Carolina. But, of course, you'd be getting some draft capital back for a team that's still rebuilding, has questions on defense. From Minnesota's perspective, they also just drafted 4 times last year. Right, they have been a low-volume drafting team that is older, right? I think, again, the best thing Kwesi has done, I think, is brought in NFL talent. Probably the most valuable influx of NFL talent in the last 3 years in the NFL, or for any team. And they would be going to that well once again to bring in Adam Thielen. But if they had Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and Adam Thielen and T.J. Hawkinson, go get him, J.J. McCarthy. There's no excuses here. That's the best group of pass catchers in the NFL if they did that.
What a receiving core for Carson Wentz to work with.
Oh, jeez. JJ's wild card this year, man.
Yeah.
Such a wild card. Our old guy Sky Moore traded to the Niners.
Yes.
They've got no receivers healthy.
Correct. Receivers either unhealthy or contract unhappy or both.
The other one that caught the eye really quickly, the Eagles traded for Fred Johnson to be their swing tackle. Traded him. He was with the Eagles last year, signed with the Jags. Jags traded him back for a 6th-round pick. In a year where the Eagles pretty much drafted 3 developmental tackles, Miles Hinton and Holland Pierce and Cameron Williams from Texas. 3 developmental tackles, of which we always say, Jeff Stoutland, man, he's perfect balls of clay for him to work with here.
Does he hate them all?
Apparently. Because they brought back Fred Johnson, who, when you watch Fred Johnson play, he's not the best tackle in the world. Just saying Howie's great. Howie's the best GM in the NFL. They have a thing for Fred Johnson, who I don't think is a great football player. But he's going to be entrenched as their swing tackle, which he was last year, and he filled in at times last year. Okay? He filled in at times for the Super Bowl champs last year. So they're going for this known commodity, who I don't think is great, but they like him enough to give up a 6 and say, you're our swing tackle, we're not dealing with these other rookies.
I mean, they made some serious moves in that offensive line in like one day. They also traded away Darian Kennard, which, let's face it, that's what we should have left off with. The Eagles, talk about risky, they have traded away a guaranteed Super Bowl every year by trading away Darian Kennard.
Yeah.
He has been in the NFL 3 years now and has won a Super Bowl every season.
3-time Super Bowl champion.
Consecutive.
Off to Green Bay.
100% Super Bowl record.
Yeah.
In his NFL career. And you just let that walk out the door. Not just let it walk out, you trade it away for a 6th-round pick. Green Bay Packers are now winning the Super Bowl.
Marquez Valdez-Scantling was the MVP maker until last year. But he wasn't, because he was in Buffalo for a minute.
So what you need to do is
4 straight years of MVPs.
You need to get MVS and Kennard on your roster, and now you're going to have this. You're going to win the Super Bowl, and your quarterback's going to win MVP.
That's it. It's the only way to do it. That's how analytics work. So yeah, the Eagles making moves. Fred Johnson's going to be their swing tackle here.
Ben Allen, our producer, is repeatedly informing you that it was a 7th-round pick, not a 6th for Fred Johnson.
7th-round.
So as much as they like him, they don't like him quite as much as you think they do.
Apologies. I'm just reading the teleprompter, people. if you wanted to fix it.
It's an important clarification there. Really, I mean, he controls.
I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but I'm going to bold the place in our document. Sorry. No, it's my fault. It's my fault for not confirming the research.
He controls the graphic. He should have just thrown a giant 7 on the screen.
I did say I love you, honey, at some point today. I hate the fact that he just
you did.
can type in anything I say at any point.
At any point.
People are going to think I'm saying this to you.
Maybe. I mean, certainly anyone screen grabbing this would probably think that, yeah.
Anything else on the trades?
No. I think that's our trades done, right?
So rosters will be finalized tomorrow at some point. I always envision us having some like instant reaction or recaps. I don't know if there'll be anything significant enough.
Right.
But you never know.
TBD.
So hit the subscribe button because you never know when we're going to go live here. Wednesday, we've got Renner. And then Thursday, we'll probably do some recap as far as roster moves or what we've seen over the last couple days. We'll see what happens for Thursday. Now, we have a college football update. I got to pull up these emails. Do you have the emails?
Yep.
Do you want to read them?
I'm going to read them one.
So listen.
One was better than the other one.
You got to go back to Thursday's episode with Josh Pate, who's now all over the place. But more importantly, he's here. He was here on our show. We previewed college football, went through some fun stuff, had a good back and forth with Josh Pate. But one of the things we were trying to figure out was, first off, can we get Sam to care about college football this year? Which apparently you guys are like him. You don't care either, so because you didn't watch the video.
Yeah.
Can we get Sam to care about college football? And if we can we find a team for Sam? And we put a poll up and we theorized what was the criteria? How are we finding a team for you?
Well, yeah, we're trying to find a college football team for me to support. I think it can't be a blue blood program. It can't be a team like Alabama or just a team that everyone expects to contend every single year. There's got to be some kind of interesting story to them. It's just something to be intrigued by as opposed to just generic, nothing, middle of the road football team. Decent mascot of some kind. Like if it's a thing that you can't tell me what it is, I'm not interested. So it can't be a Hoosier or a Hokie or, one of these things that nobody, just an amorphous nothing. Or it can't just be a big N on the side of your helmet. Not interested. So a few different things like that. And that gave us a short list of 4 teams that we put up as a poll. The SMU Mustangs were one of them. The Tulane Green Wave was one of them. Minnesota Golden Gophers was one. That was the fan-driven one because I'm not sure I would have gone with Minnesota, but it was up there in the poll. Who was the 4th team? I'm missing the 4th. SMU, Minnesota, Tulane. Somebody else.
I don't remember.
Somebody else was the 4th. Cincy, UC.
Oh, yeah.
Local.
The local.
Bearcats.
The Bearcats.
There we go.
We got the poll up once again in the chat.
It's been close. We've put this out everywhere. It's on YouTube. It's been on Twitter. It's been everywhere we are. And the poll's been close everywhere.
So we have a strong pitch that came through
correct.
Via email.
Importantly, people are emailing in to pitch teams. And honestly, I think this is a good way of doing it as well. I'm willing to go with the poll, but if you send us a very compelling email pitching a specific team, I like that as well. And we had an exceptionally good email come in to pitch SMU. Shall I read it now, Stephen?
Yes, please do. I don't have my Slack's not updating.
This one came from Matt Colquitt. Dear Sam and Big Goofy, I have seen the poll for Sam's new college football allegiance, and it's close between Cincy and SMU. But as an SMU alum, I would like to make the case for Sam to choose to pledge his allegiance to the Mustangs. Number 1, we have the best mascot on your list, let alone the entirety of college football. We have a live, full-size Shetland pony that goes around campus before the games and is on the sideline for all home games, named Peruna, I think. After every touchdown, Peruna is run from end zone to end zone by the handlers. Also, Peruna is the only mascot in the history of college football to kill another mascot, the Fordham Ram in 1934. I'm going to need to read about that. Peruna also double-kicked the Texas Longhorn in the chest, causing it to tip over and be severely injured. Number 2, I appreciate that you love Kevin Jennings, and we're all very excited for him. We've proven that we can keep talent as we retained him last season after some very competitive NIL offerings from bigger programs. But SMU is in the top 10 of average NIL deals per player, so don't fret about maintaining top-tier talent. Number 3, if these points don't convince you, let me try and sway you in the way only an SMU alum can. I own a Pony Express clothing brand and can send you some merchandise in exchange for your loyalty to the Mustangs. This behavior might have gotten us the death penalty, but now it's all kosher. Why not lean into it? I think that's spectacular. That really is. That's all the pillars I'm interested in. That's
perfect email.
Comedy mascot story. It's, they've got a player I like, and it's I'm willing to bribe you with free merch.
The bribery. I mean, look, I know we're talking about your team here, but I will rock all the Pony Express.
No, you are already.
What do you mean?
You're a Florida Gators guy. That's already ridiculous.
No, I will
in the show.
I will wear all of the college gear, even
No.
as a Florida fan. If you send me Florida State stuff or Tennessee or Georgia, I don't care.
You're already a
Just a
mercenary
college football
fan.
fan. No,
for hire.
I will rock all the double XL
No.
Pony Express gear that is sent my way.
We did watch. This is one from left field, but in Circa, the late game was Stanford against Hawaii, and we mentioned that the Colt Brennan led Hawaii was my favorite team way back in the day. That quarterback that they've got, the little lefty kid with the bum ankle. I mean, I was rooting for Hawaii during that game. I wanted them to pull it out at the end, so maybe I can just go back to Hawaii.
Undefeated Hawaii.
That would be a pain in the ass to watch, though. They're always on late at night. And,
Yeah, you could have multiple teams.
No, you can't do that.
Sure you can.
No.
Despite what the polls say.
Anyway, the email. Send us in. There you see, it's on the screen. Check the mic.
SMU's catching up. So I noticed the Shetland Pony killer story.
If you just let me read out the email so people can send us emails.
Oh.
Check the mic at the33rdteam.com is where you send emails if you have a pitch for your team.
The Shetland Pony killer story is helping SMU catch up in the live poll on YouTube.
Good. It should.
SMU has taken the lead briefly here.
There it is. Look.
Because of that.
Peruna.
Peruna.
And somehow my little boy band
Also,
pictures made it onto the screen as a...
Knocked down the longhorn, too. Talk about horns down. That's impressive.
You wouldn't have thought a little Shetland pony could, decleat a longhorn. I mean, those are big.
I am currently wearing Jordan 33rd team gear. We gave some of this away around draft time.
For anyone watching and not listening, the Photoshop job there, that's actually me.
Leading the Shetland Pony.
Yeah, well, handling the Shetland pony.
Yes.
How did something that small decleat a longhorn?
I need more on the history here. So yeah, fire over the Pony Express gear, and we'll I'll keep talking Sam into choosing SMU.
Look, that email was that was a very good step in the right direction.
SMU has won the live YouTube poll.
There you go. So the live YouTube poll is SMU.
Twitter had Minnesota, who I had encouraged.
It was close. All of them were above 20%. Minnesota won with 28. SMU was 22. UC 24 and 25. Tulane 25-26.
Birdie wants to know when you had that much hair.
That would have been, in and around the 2000s.
During your boy band days.
Yeah, exactly. The hair was glorious until it stopped being glorious and fell out. I mean, the head of hair was legit back in the day.
Can we get a sponsor to help Sam get his hair back?
At one point I had long, glorious hair, and then it just stopped being a thing.
There were two other things we needed to remind people of. One was the Pick'em leagues. You need to remind people?
Yes. On our Discord, we ran all last season. We had a couple of leagues in the Sleeper app. We had a season-long Pick'em one, and then we had a Survivor pool as well. The Survivor pool, I did quite well in both of them. The Survivor one, though, I ceased to do quite well when I forgot to put in my Survivor pick around about week 11 or something. But that was going well up until I forgot to enter it one week. And then the Pick'em pool, I think I did quite well. I didn't win it, but I was in the top something or other. I was pretty close to the end. You, I seem to remember, did terribly in both of them, and were definitely...
My picks weren't great. But
were you beaten by your child or not? I forget.
Yeah, Harry won.
Okay.
Harry will be back. He's already asking me about it. So we'll be picking. We'll both be picking. Harry will pick, and you guys can join in the fun.
So head to the Discord, the link to which should be in the description of the show, wherever you get it. Once you get in there, you should find announcements, or you should find link to the Survivor leagues. Join them, play along. And as last year, the winner of each league will get some CTM merch.
So do the Discord, and then the one other thing I needed to remind people of, preseason bets. For those who don't know, our fan bets. Every year we do this around the draft, and we do it before the season. Put your money where your mouth is. If you have a great prediction, something particularly against something that we've said, the genesis of this being the year that we said, hey, the Raiders have one of the worst rosters in the NFL, and somebody said, you're an idiot. I think they're great. You hate the Raiders. And we said, all right, we'll make a prediction. They're going to win 10 games. They're going to make the playoffs. They're going to win the Super Bowl, whatever. I don't know, the AFC Championship. Put a prediction in there. So we'll take all of your predictions and we'll read them out on the show if they're strong enough. It's not going to be like, I think the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl, right? Like, that's not it. But Raiders for the Super Bowl would be a great one. Put up some coffee and we'll put up some merch. Maybe even more. We need to mass produce these things for the fans. The number of people asking for the 33rd team Jordan gear is
Harrison
huge.
will be so happy.
But mostly the Check the Mic gear, right? We've got Shouty Show shirts. Do we have the link in the description for all of our
Should be.
all of our
If
merch?
not, it's my pinned tweet is a link to our
Check out all the
store.
merch. We'll put up hats. We'll put up shirts, hoodies, whatever, especially for coffee, because we need coffee here at the new studio.
But critically, the more outlandish the bet/claim,
Yeah.
the more likely it is we're to take it, and the better it
We've
is.
already had a few come in, so we can put the email up once again. Check the mic
For example,
at the33rdteam.com.
in the last few years, we have had bets effectively predict the breakout/phenomenal performance of Geno Smith when nobody saw that coming, and Sam Darnold when nobody saw that coming. Like,
We've had some good ones.
Yeah.
So be aggressive. And sometime between now and the start of the season, we're going to have a season preview show where we'll add in the fan bets and we'll take, 20 or 30 of them, whatever it might be. And usually 10% hit, 15, 20%. And we got merch to give out. So let's do that. Discord, send in your emails. Anything else people need to do?
no,
Go watch the college football preview from Thursday.
If I'd known that Ben and his Photoshop skills was going to be on the trigger, I would have prepared a Big Goofy versus Big Sugar side-by-side graphic. That would have been pretty good.
Big Sugar
Big Sugar.
debuted for our hometown Reds this weekend. While we were at Circa, we were watching some West Coast baseball, and the dude throws 102, a little better than me, but he's 6'6", 275. I've already been tagged in these baseball tweets.
Yeah.
And then you went and tagged me with an old picture of me getting ready for that was our preseason. That was our one workout day in Fresno before the start of the 2009 season that you put out there.
That would have been prime Big Goofy territory.
I was legit in my prime. 20, just turned 27.
Such as it was.
Just turned 27.
Yeah.
May have pumped 96 that
day?
on a a couple weeks earlier on a jugs gun, which reads a little bit higher.
Okay.
My friend, who was a scout at the time, said that his team had me at 96, which we'll just stick with.
Yeah, sure.
Hit 96 against the Cubs in spring training. And so I was absolutely in my prime. Not 102 like Big Sugar. But
No. Well, maybe if Big Sugar's carrying some, let's call them surplus pounds around the midriff. Maybe if you'd embrace just size, right?
If I had a similar...
Yeah, like if you just embraced sheer poundage, like mass. Mass is the most important thing for miles per hour.
It is.
So if Big Goofy had got himself to like 312 and just unleashed, you might have been able to hit 102.
So yeah, check out Sam's Twitter. We had a fun picture breakdown there. All right, that it for us today?
I feel like Big Sugar is a better nickname than Big Goofy.
I don't like Big Goofy. No. That was the other thing. While we hit the road, we were out to dinner one time, and I looked up, and the Iowa Cubs, when we were at Bears camp, we were out to dinner, and I looked up. I said, "Oh, the Iowa Cubs are playing right now on the screen over there." That's where
the guy called you Big Goofy.
That's where the guy called me Big Goofy in a game against the Iowa Cubs.
Yeah.
Him and his 9-year-old, who's probably an accountant somewhere. He was teaching his 9-year-old.
Maybe he's teaching his 9-year-old how to sledge
Maybe he is.
opposing players.
Say Big Goofy. Maybe he's a listener now. If you called me Big Goofy circa 2009, let us know. Jerks. All right, that's it for us today. We're going to be back on Wednesday. We're bringing Mike Renner in studio. Hopefully we get everything to work. He's going to be sitting right here, your 2026 NFL Draft preview this Wednesday with Renner. All right, thanks to everybody for tuning in. We'll see you again Wednesday with more Check the Mic.